Face front, true believers. Bluedragonfive here.
And Rohith Dhar.
And we're back talking a new show from the MCU. We're talking WonderMan. We're going to spoil the heck out of it, so I hope you've seen it. Yeah, so I remember when this was announced. Kind of bumped around. Originally, we were going to get in December, got bumped to January. I was a little worried about this one, but I think it's a very nice miniseries. I think the miniseries format really, I know it's saying the miniseries format, given that all of them, basically, I think incidentally, all of them ended up being miniseries, but this one very much so is kind of aiming to be like, they weren't intending on more, but, given the success of it, sounds like there's a conversation open for more regardless. Having seen this, I liked it. I don't think it's going to be for everyone, but I'm hearing good. I'm hearing it's been getting good buzz. So maybe I'm wrong. I think it was nice. I think it's a nice alternative thing for the MCU to be kind of experimenting with, and I think it's kind of overdue for them to get experimental and small scale, which is I think the direction we needed. We've been in desperate need of street level and smaller scale. And yeah, I mean there's a lot of untapped potential in that. It just basically the way in which they went about this, I feel, was very right for Wonder Man. The specific kind of thing of Wonder Man, they were kind of looking to bring to screen. I think they did a really good job with it. Definitely, basically, for kind of a reboot of the Wonder Man character, like an in-universe reboot of the Wonder Man character. It's a great take on him. I mean, for me, one of the reasons I was kind of on the fence is that the Wonder Man I'm used to is kind of the Earth's Mightiest Heroes Wonder Man, which I know is still kind of an update on that character, but fundamentally that's that guy's origin story. Which Wonder Man has a great arc and like a whole lot of stuff that he goes through in the comics, and there's kind of some eras of Wonder Man, but it's I think they realize the kind of making the Earth's Mightiest Heroes. I know it's not just the Earth's Mightiest Heroes version. That's just I think that's kind of like the easy go to for like in recent years, like the go to adaptation of Wonder Man, not going all the way back to like Avengers United and everything. It's just it's just kind of fundamentally just doing the classic Wonder Man version of that story. It's kind of impossible without Tony Stark, at least for it to really have teeth and just kind of be what that character is. So, they went with the actor side of the character. And again, that just led to a lot of untapped potential. They kind of cut the strings on, okay, look, we can't do traditional Wonder Man. So what can we do with that? Like what's like an element of that character we can explore that no one's ever really done anything proper in that regard to that character with. And I think they expand upon that, and it's a really good, just kind of like separated story and kind of the tomes of the MCU, and I liked it. It was kind of very enjoyable. Rohit, what say you? What's your overall kind of take on this show?
I think I can chalk up to a certain extent being recency bias, and maybe I might feel differently, but at the I will say the Wonder Man is my favorite MCU property, if not among the best of the MCU, not just the multiverse saga, but overall. I think the overall construction and arc of the show, it being not a traditional superhero like tale story, lends itself to being about something real and fundamental. Not to say that other superhero properties outside and in the MCU's universe and world don't have something real and fundamental to them to one extent or another. But I think just the fact that this show emphasized really this longing to be seen, to pursue one's dreams, to connect with an outcast, a misfit, and have that kind of be in a universe that has been ongoing by May of this year for 18 years. To utilize a character who was seen as kind of a punchline to a movie that I think is relatively divisive, polarizing. Some people love Iron Man 3, some people don't because of
And
Manda's
he's kind of the mascot of that divisive element of that movie too, which is
yeah.
interesting.
But now with this show, he's now just one of the most interesting characters in MCU, him
Hmm.
and Iron. And I think this show, I don't know. I can't imagine any other iteration of Wonder Man that would have been as compelling as this. Because not just say, I'm not saying I'm saying all this. I'm not saying Wonder Man in comics overall is a bad character by any stretch of means. I just think he's the kind of character that has the kind of power that he has because he's just made to be part of an ensemble and really sometimes or more often than not a plot device. Like I think often his big contributions is he's the mental blueprint for Vision. He often when he's in an adventures team, he's kind of a second stringer who has a lot of insecurity. And the acting thing is like he just kind of fell into it because oh he can handle like he has invulnerability, so he can be both an actor and a stuntman. And then he has kind of his relationship with Beast, and then like he has nine powers. So it's not like I know he has solo runs, but it's like there's Wonder Man as a character is never a character I feel like is of a level to where he would have a consistent fan base. But there are elements that I think the MCU creatives, Destin Dalen Cretton and the showrunner Andrew Guest, had utilized to make something new and interesting. And I think Wonder Man is the character Wonder Man what the Blade movies are to Blade, where you're taking a character that is kind of hokey, kind of not hokey, but some just is fine, but nothing too exemplary or too out of this world, and then honed and refined into something that's really appealing and transformative for that character. I don't know if this show is going to retroactively like have Wonder Man moving forward be more in line with this iteration of the character, but I just think with what this show presented, Simon Williams, as portrayed by Yahya Abdul-Mateen II, easily one of the most fascinating, complex, engaging characters in the wider MCU. He's probably one of the most relatable characters. And I feel like it's like, for as much as people talk about the Marvel Netflix shows being realistic, gritty, I felt that this show was more along the lines of not like say something like the studio or the player. It felt more along the lines of things like Unbreakable or things where it's like or Chronicle, where it's like you live in a world where powers and like supernatural elements exist, but it's a very human story at the center of it. That the powers were just a means to like enhance or exemplify like the feelings and themes rather than just like, all right, these are characters operating within like a genre setting and there's certain tropes to kind of hear and follow to. And I think because of that, this feels more free to just focus on um, Simon's kind of inner turmoil, his relationship with Trevor, his feelings of just wanting to be belonged and accepted by his family. And I think the fact that there's really not much of like he doesn't really have like a big bad to like defeat or fight against. Yeah, there is an external force, but it doesn't really come in to directly impact his life, or if anything impacts Trevor's life. And the way the show ends, like this is a show that I think as more people get the chance to watch it, rewatch it, and accept the thing on its own terms, I think it's going to be one of the highlights of the multiverse saga and of the MCU as a whole. And I really hope that for other shows, take inspiration from it and be willing to kind of buck from the traditional superhero structure and MCU formula, and that other new characters that could maybe have certain elements that could be honed and have that be the thing, and rather than just be oh here's another superhero show. I think that leads to the MCU being more long lasting as a brand, where I know some people who may like the show but criticize that hey like we're just kind of being directionless and just throwing everything at the wall. We're not really having a point of like hey we're this is the MCU plot moving forward. I think there could be a balance of the two, but if I pick one of the two, I rather have opportunities where you can do interesting stories with compelling characters, can fill up a wider universe rather than a universe where we're just kind of falling from event to event or big plot to big plot.
Yeah, yeah. Usually we don't do this kind of thing with the spoiler cast because it's just came out, it's just kind of recent, and there's things we don't know. But I do want to unpack just real quick a few of the kind of the confluence of events that got us this show. Just a few little nuggets here. So you know, WonderMan has he's kind of been floating around the MCU since Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 with the deleted Easter egg that we had, which I was always that's why that's why WonderMan and the MCU was kind of like, on my radar, because Nathan Fillion was at one time, I was convinced he was going to play Wonder Man.
Mm-hmm.
I was convinced he was gonna, at some point it was because, I mean, James Gunn of all people, he kind of worked that in there, and the whole acting side of Wonder Man, it seemed like that guy's kind of a natural fit, and the fact that he played Tony Stark in like the Steve Jobs biopic, I always thought that was really funny. But so when they announced, Abdul Mateen the second was playing a role, I was like, well, there goes that's out the window. But still, though, it was, it's always the weird thing of like, if it's a deleted scene, it doesn't count, but sometimes it does count. Sometimes it's like an inspiration for something. Like you look at Hawkeye, we had more Kingpin scenes, but those scenes were on the cutting room floor. But they do inspire the ice cream scene that's an Echo. So there's kind of a connective line there. Sometimes the worm turns and it comes around. Sometimes not so much. But yeah, so apparently, so Wonder Man was just kind of floating around there, and obviously WandaVision, everyone and their mother speculated because we have some Wonder Man, and we also had Grim Reaper, and like the Easter eggs and the WandaVision openings. So there were there's a lot of speculation on that, but apparently post Shang Chi, both shows really had a lot of development going on. Dustin Daniel Cretton, he was he basically proposed the Trevor Slattery show around the same time Wonder Man was kind of like being pitched and developed. I don't know if it was by Andrew Guest or not. Maybe that's kind of how the two kind of intersected, because I don't know if they both just kind of like ended up on the project, or they both had, because basically you had two separate shows that ended up being combined into each other, which is so meta given what happens in the show with the two with the two characters kind of ending up in each other's story.
Mm-hmm. And I would never think that, like, if you told me 5 or 10, you told me like 5 or 10 years ago that, hey, Ben Kingsley is going to show up in a streaming service. He's going to show up in an MCU streaming show, and he's going to be basically going to buddy duo story with Yahya Abdul-Mateen the second playing Simon Williams, and it'll be like a low key, heartfelt, and emotionally engaging, drama that takes place in Hollywood. I would have thought, I was like, okay, like it feels like someone is just wanting to do like like Joker, but in MCU. And if anything, like it feels much better and more original in a sense than like Joker is. And that's kind of crazy to have something like that exist in universe.
Yeah, I mean, it's also another thing too. It's like a really prominent example of we've taken a DC actor and we really, we've taken just an actor from one cinematic universe, and we've kind of like put them in the other one. They've really, impressed and really just kind of like carved out their own niche. And it doesn't feel at all like the previous thing that they've done. Because let's face it, Yahya Abdul Mateen was one of the best parts of the Aquaman movie. I love what he did as Black Manta. So I knew like this guy's our plus. I mean, Watchmen even. I mean, he's a really good actor, and he's gotten so many bites at the apple in these really kind of subtle and kind of ways. Like again, playing what he did as Doctor Manhattan and what he did as Black Manta, two very diametrically opposite, but two really good like representative takes of those characters.
Well, I mean, I think he's correct me if I'm wrong. I think he's like a Yale School of the Arts. So he's got the training. Like I know
Yeah,
he's like at the Yale School of the Arts. I think is on like the level of like Juilliard or whatever acting schools that are out there. So he's got the training, the acumen, and it's crazy to me that he hasn't really blown up as an actor in the sense of like working with a Barry Jenkins, a Spike Lee, or even just like. And watching this, it's like, how does a director not see the work he does? It's like I want to work with this guy, because think of what Yahya Abdul-Mateen has to do as an actor for this. Is that he has to play an actor who's trying to pursue a role where he acts as like a superhero, and it's a thing that's in a superhero universe, but he's not really trying to be like oh, I'm trying to be like RDJ or Chris Evans or Chris Hemsworth or Chris Pratt or whoever. It's like I am playing a tortured, introverted, you know, man who speaks through art and has more in common with like Holden Caulfield than like um insert like leading MCU act like character in film or TV. And the fact that like he's flawed in a way that's human, because I think sometimes when a character is flawed, it's like, oh, they're flawed in being
And we have a
too.
scene that really demonstrates the flaws very well with the American Horror Story scene.
Yeah, and the thing is that it's an appreciable, endearing flaw because he's not trying to be like obtuse and
He's
obstinate.
not an egocentric guy, but he is. And we see that later on, though. He is a little bit of like it's a little me with his world. But before we get there, like this just gives us it's relatable enough that sometimes we are perfectionists. Sometimes a lot of times we over. If you're an actor, so a lot of actors they infer a lot of backstory. Sometimes it's welcome, sometimes it's not. If you're a day player, there's no time for that, and that's what we see here. It's like commendable what the guy's doing. He's approaching it from like the Yale School of Drama, much like the actor, and there's the meta component right there. The problem is, like so many actors, they're trying to get their big break. They're trying to make the most out of the opportunity, and there is the risk of like if you pick it apart too much, you lose the job.
Yeah, and that's the thing is like he's an actor, the one that wants to pursue the craft of acting, not the job of acting.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's kind of such an interesting component to when later
Saw a
on.
lot of Barry in this show, by the way, which I really liked.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I think the fact that like Simon being like not just a black guy, but specifically
A
like
black Haitian guy.
yeah, like so there's an immigrant story experience, which is I
Mm-hmm.
think that's interesting considering like the Destin Daniel Cretton involvement in this project because Shang-Chi in a certain extent is like not a straightforward immigrant story, but it is like about a man who is like, basically living among like the Asian American diaspora in San Francisco and is coming back to his homeland or his like mother country or whatever to see his father. And, there's also like Kamala Khan, or Kamala Khan with, with sort of her Pakistani roots. And I think like Simon, having that kind of immigrant experience and him specifically, feeling kind of undercut and overshadowed by his more traditionally successful brother. It's like something you would see in just like a regular drama, in an A24 movie or even an HBO show. And this is not something you would necessarily see like in superhero fiction, at least mainstream superhero fiction.
Okay, so a few things. Okay, so we have some people in the comments there. We're gonna try and try and bring up. So we have Super Billy and we have Little Blue in the comments. Guys, we're gonna get to your comments. Just we might have to kind of intersperse some a little bit here to when they're relevant because it's gonna be a long one here. So sorry, Yahya Abdul Mateen II is a great actor, says Super Billy. What I love about him is that there's always so much going on under the surface. Absolutely.
Mhm.
Simon's passion, caring, but a little self-centered, single-minded, and oblivious. Which, of course, these are elements that we definitely explore throughout the season. And let's see. So I could definitely read kind of the racial migrant themes and commentary into the show. I love that for the most part, Simon being black and specifically Haitian is totally incidental. So this is the thing I want to bring up real quick. So we'll get to it when we kind of talk about the visit to home,
Mhm.
Koima, a little bit later. But I tell you, the one opinion I desperately want on this show, I have not heard what he thinks of it yet. Because the moment I heard like he was black Haitian, I was really interested because I know there's one black Haitian writer, Mark Bernardin, who again I remember he talked about he has like there's like kind of Haitian roots in him. And I was shocked because he's written for MCU stuff. I'm shocked he is not a lot of MCU stuff, but like he did like Eyes of Wakanda, and he's I believe he's worked on I want to say he was the writer on the upcoming Marvel 1943 Rise of was it Rise of Hydra? Is that what it's called?
Rise of Hydra, yeah.
Rise of Hydra game. So that's things. Mark Millar is a wonderful writer, and he works to the podcast with Kevin Smith on Black Man Beyond. Well, Fat Man Beyond as well as Black Man Beyond when Kevin Smith's not there. That's kind of what they call. Anyway, the point being, he's wonderful, and sometimes he'll write on things for the MCU, and I was kind of shocked that he had no involvement in this, given that element. I really want to know what he thinks, because I imagine it'd be a very personal story for him, especially
Yeah.
to me. I mean, I think Bernard's going to be really touched by the like the stuff with Simon and his father.
Yeah. Well, and this is something I didn't know until I kind of did research on Yahya Abdul-Mateen, is that and it converts his Wikipedia like page. It's like his father had passed, I think the mid to late 2000s, and when he was kind of looking to his father's like past and heritage, he found out that his dad had like West Indian roots. And so I think I would not be surprised if Yahya being like being cast for the show, I don't mean like in through the course of development, is that they just brought kind of essentially his background into Simon's character, which in that case, like I think it's kind of cool to see that like element, because I think part of the MCU being the way it is like it's made in a time like in America and the world where we're a lot more of a diverse, globalized society. So I think when there's opportunities to kind of add color and texture to characters who are kind of mostly of a particular majority background, like back in the 50s and 60s, being able to do something that's, of contemporary society, not in a way that just like they are just this background and nothing else, but to add a lot of dimension to an already interesting character. I think it's a cherry on the top, and I really do love like Simon's family. We get to meet them and the extended family. It feels real, and I see a lot of commentary from people who like are like aspiring artists and creators, especially from immigrant backgrounds, that like really relate
There's
to.
always the go. It's a universal thing too. It's the idea of like the parents always want you to go for like the accounting, the practical, always the safe, the safe occupation. But
The 9 to 5
especially,
corporate America, white collar job. Yeah.
which sometimes, depending on I guess the ethnic background or what have you, sometimes that'll be leaned on a little extra hard. But it's everyone across the globe. There's always the parental just kind of looking out for you thing. But there's also we saw he was really judged by his community as well. The whole thing of like, oh, look how he dresses. Now, to be fair, okay, I'm going to give him some credit on this. To be fair, Simon dresses like crap throughout the show until he like gets to the premiere. If you really look, he's just wearing the same outfit. But then again, there's like a day night. It's kind of hard to tell how many days actually go by. How many days do you think go by in the show?
That's kind of hard.
I kind of want to say weeks go by, but then again, he's always wearing like the same gray, kind of sweat.
I mean, I don't think he dresses bad. I guess it just, for me, it's like,
I mean, as an actor in LA, kind of, it's not so much. I mean, he's going to visit his mother on her birthday, and like he could dress up just a little bit. That's he's just wearing the same outfit he's worn like in the other episodes up to that point. That's what bugs me about it.
I mean, part of it is that like he's a struggling actor. He may not have that much like in terms of a wardrobe, right? You know what I mean?
So I mean, that's what it implies to me, is that I guess he really doesn't have much to. He really is kind of a starving actor.
But I think for me, it's like I feel like his outfit is like something I wouldn't put past, like, because think of it this way: it's like Simon's not just like he's like an actor's actor. He's like
he's wearing it in the poster even. Look at it.
Yeah, but like I know, but I think there's like that. I think part of it is for me. I'm a bad night. I like what Simon wears, because I've like going from the Bay Area, going to like a very particular kind of like college, and just kind of seeing like people on social media, especially people living like coastal areas like California and New York, like that kind of outfit attire is like something I would see, like someone who's like very bohemian, very like of the arts or creative, like that's kind of an outfit I would see, like that would be the typical kind of outfit.
I mean, look, it makes sense. It's just the fact that we see it a lot. But I guess you're right again with the starving artist and just the very just practical to like
very bohemian. Like if he was like a beanie and like glasses away from being like the performative male.
Yeah. All right. Anyway, so just okay. So I want to hit on just to kind of jump around a little bit here. So again, just overall with again, just with our take on Wonder Man here, again, it's just the fact we're focusing on the actor background versus the traditional Wonder Man. Again, just taking the again, just taking kind of like like the the kind of the vision backstory out of the equation. Just all this, like, we've stripped away down to the basics of, like, let's flesh out the acting side of the character. Like, acting is the blank slate to work from, where it was like in his history, it was like, okay, he happened to be an actor because he could do the stunts, and that's pretty much all we had to work from. And then we just kind of like applied that to like the reboot aspect, which I thought was the most inspired idea of the thing when I first saw the trailer for this. I knew we were in better shape when I saw the trailer, which we saw like the one, the original, like, Wonder Man in the Goofy costume,
Yeah.
in the Goofy George Perez era costume, which basically George Perez made that look good, by the way, which, as we do here in the show, we actually make it look good and kind of 80s hokey, basically Flash Gordon esque.
Yeah, and it's kind of like it's really interesting to have like the idea of Wonder Man be like an established like superhero property in the Marvel universe. That Simon is just wanting to like he just happened like that was his like dad's favorite movie, and that kind of that as well as just him
I
being
love that as the connecting, like
yeah.
through line through the show. By the way, I love that we start that. To me, is the mark of, like, we really, a lot of the MCU shows often in the rougher parts of the MCU series that they've been doing, it's like we don't have that grounding kind of like through line that you care about right from the outset. And we absolutely had that here, where it's, with that, his new the backstory of, like, fundamentally Wonder Man does have a connection to his father, but that was more in like the business sense of he's trying to keep the company alive. But here, just making a lot more universal and relatable, and the idea we all have gone to a movie with our father or our loved one, and they're bonding over this cheesy 80s, Flash Gordon inspired Wonder Man movie, and
Yeah,
that they're bonding, and that's the destiny shaping moment for time.
and that's so real because think of it this way, like Dragon, it's like for as much as like Simon is like a very avant-garde, like artistic kind of an actor, he's got a Criterion collection or whatever. Um,
I love that Criterion joke, by the way. I'm
and it's
calling out
funny,
DJ Martinez right now because I can't. It's always Criterion with that guy.
and it's funny to bring that up because just before this, I just signed up for the Criterion channel, and so my God.
I have a Criterion thing. For Christmas. I got the Criterion again. I basically, any Criterion stuff I get is very rare, and only because it has a feature that I can't get, or it's a movie I really needed.
Mhm.
I got Nightmare Alley, the Criterion version, because it has the Guillermo del Toro commentary on it, and the black and white version, and all the stuff.
That's a good get.
Yeah,
I what was really great about that is that it's very evocative how I think it's like more so on the director side than actors, but like it's evocative how a lot of directors and actors, it's like you know about like J.J. Abrams, whoever, it's like they watch Star Wars and it's like, oh, I want to like recreate that, I want to do that.
yeah.
And I think especially actors, it's like I watch like Wizard of Oz or like Back to the Future, something like a very commercial film that kind of give them the acting bug or whatever. And I think that's something so relatable about Simon is that he was just a kid that just was enchanted, and and especially he was a kid that just didn't have much in terms of friends. You know, I and I
I
think like
love that we do that story in three parts, by the way. So our openings are very strong for the episodes that we have, in the eight episodes that we got, and most of them are flashback. But just the way in which we break down going to the movies with the, I believe is it Sanford? Yeah, it's Sanford Williams, right?
yeah.
Yeah, with Sanford Williams. Just the fact that we do, we have the experience seeing the movie, which I think just like a strong pilot is something you really want, especially even if you have like a limited, like a mini series or just like the limited number of episodes. You still want like a pilot that feels like you want someone to be really drawn in. And I feel we open the movie theater and the episode hinges on him and Trevor Slattery meeting in the movie theater. So it's very key. So we have that, and then we have what gets us to the movie theater, and then we have what happens right after the movie. So it's kind of a three-part kind of story between father and son, and we do it like in kind of an inverted order, which is
Yeah,
really good idea.
but it's like, and it'd be kind of interesting to like if someone took those like flashbacks and like edited them together to be like a small short film.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think what's interesting about Simon is that I think because he's not a superhero, like we when we see like superhero characters like their flashbacks or whatever, especially if it's characters that like you know they come from specific like ethnic backgrounds or whatever, there's like some level of trauma or whatever that like propels them and it's something that they have to work through to resolve. And that's not to say that like Simon doesn't have trauma or baggage or whatever.
He's
But I think
definitely got baggage, but not. But again, we don't dwell on it.
yeah, but I think for me, what I think is most interesting is that Simon's just like direction to be an actor comes from like just a place of being in a wonderment and enjoy. And I think it's kind of reminds me how like for say like when you watch like sports movies and there's a kid that's like one that like watches like a game and then changed it by a certain athlete and then because that they're compelled to like get into the sport and become the best they could be. It's like I think for me like Rudy is like the best example of like a kid that like watch like Notre Dame football and is so enchanted by it that he just drives so hard to be it, even though the amount of obstacles that come his way. And that I think is also an interesting way for this story to plays out. It's very aspirational, like hustling about and like Simon isn't utilizing his powers to like get what he needs. He's utilizing his like strengths and street smarts to kind of like navigate and make it to where he becomes like a breakout star at the end.
Yeah, I mean, thinking on the show after seeing all the episodes, I think it occurs to me that so in the movie theater scene, I guess between all three sequences or three parts of it, regardless. By the end of the show, we know that this guy, his father was is kind of encouraging his shy and kind of withdrawn son. We see Simon has issues, kind of like kind of socializing and kind of kind of getting out of his shell, which I want to say may or may not have to do with the power, with the power dilemma, with the ever, with kind of the ionic based powers. But regardless, you could look at it as fundamentally he gets the acting bug because he's going back to this happy cherished memory with his father, which
Mhm.
presumably is before. I mean, if I'm read look, obviously it's not explicitly stated, but the way I read it is that they went to the movies not long after his father probably passed from kind of what they mentioned in the show, and then we have the kitchen fire. So I want to say that's the through line. Now, whether or not he had kind of a power flare before or after the movie theater thing, I'm not sure. You could read it as maybe yes, and that's maybe why he's a little withdrawn, and then it comes out during the fire. Regardless, it's the fact that this kid, for reasons showing withdrawn, and he's kind of going back to kind of this kind of this happy moment with his father, in which he kind of laid out the path of maybe embracing his passion, becoming an actor, and basically I want to say that he uses acting as a way. This is a guy who's had to hide his powers for the majority of his life, and hence the kind of made the socially withdrawnness, and he uses the acting as a way to hide and yet reinvent himself and be able to be social by kind of faking it to make it, so to speak. At least that's kind of what the goal is. Like I can socialize. I want to make my father proud and I want to be normal, but in contrast to the mutant powers or the quasi mutant powers.
Mhm.
So I kind of like that looking back on it, where it's kind of there's a lot of layers to what he's doing and why the person's trying to hide who they are. Why would they want the limelight? It's not so much he's a fame jockey, but I think to him it's like that's the way of like achieving kind of like what he wants in life, as well as like the goal of making
Well,
making
well,
him
but
proud of his boy.
good think of it this way: it's like for his powers being as they are, he has to utilize a lot of control, and that level of control makes him be so withdrawn and awkward around people because he can't just because I think what we don't take realize or internalize as much is that to socialize, to be among people, make friends, fall in love, whatever it is to like be out in the world, there's a certain level of like being uninhibited. And for Simon, if he's sort of aware of like how dangerous his powers could be in a certain heightened state, like he kind of has to like do an incredibly great deal of emotional regulation. And because of that, it's like he has to kind of find an outlet, and acting is the way where he can kind of let out his emotions in a controlled manner and still appreciate that like he's good at inhabiting other characters because he's able to just be fully someone else and not have to think about, oh, how will I like modulate my emotions, because he's by playing pretend, he's kind of doing like exposure therapy to a certain extent. I don't know if that's the right term to utilize, but he's fulfilling his emotional output through acting. Because if he didn't get into acting, like I think he would struggle to, you know, control his powers. And I think might have been easily like a threat and be just kind of in a DODC facility much earlier in his life or something equivalent to that.
Okay, so on the flip side, speaking of all the acting, Simon Williams and Trevor Slattery, they're dynamic. We should probably talk about the Trevor Slattery side of things.
Yeah. I really appreciate for Trevor Slattery that there was an acknowledgement for how he was able to kind of be out in the public. It's like, oh no, the DODC caught him and are using him as like an informant.
Yeah. So yeah, I thought that was really because I was wondering the same thing, but I was thinking like, well, I mean, the Shang-Chi thing. I mean, I guess that's how he got from point A to point B, and that's how he's out in the world. But I just imagine it'd be
I
a
mean,
thing like so many years have passed. Maybe they looked past it, but they realized, oh no, of course not. They wouldn't do that.
well, no, because in Shang-Chi, he wasn't out of the world. He was broken out by the actual Ten Rings organization, brought in as a prisoner, and then just kind of left to rot until Shang-Chi and Katie freed him, and then he
That's
was.
what I mean. He was freed by Shang-Chi. So, I mean, he's kind of, by that logic, he's like, well, I mean, he's not a prisoner anymore, so he can go wherever he wants, at least in theory, until, then realize, yeah, we had that great airport scene where things like, okay, Trevor's turning around. Good for Trevor. And then it's like, oh, yeah, that's exactly what would happen to him the moment he steps back on American soil.
It is kind of crazy. I guess part of it is just also like, if one maybe would have wished for more MCU connections. It's interesting that like say someone like that no one from the Iron Man films like John like Happy Hogan, Pepper Potts, or even Rhodey like
Well,
cats.
Rhodey's complicated right now, unfortunately, but
Well,
look, Rhodey's complicated. Pepper's raising a kid, and Happy. I mean, he's okay. Happy, jury's out on Happy. Happy could have been it, but still, what's Happy really going to do in state affairs? I mean, I don't.
no, I guess just for me, it's like I do understand your point about Rhodey being complicated because of this whole secret invasion thing, which
He's a teenage scroll girl now. I don't know.
no, I mean Rhodey.
Well, I mean, now he's back, but now we don't really know what to. He's probably like this in the Civil War era of of the MCU, but he's adjusted, but we haven't touched on that at all yet, so it's unclear.
Yeah, well, I just think about it. It's kind of crazy that like was a prominent part.
I always have this rant on Rhodey. It's a little thing. Every time, and it's a thing that retroactively making him the teenage scroll girl kind of made a little sense out of, but it's not something I needed to use. Honestly, it's like I love Avengers Endgame. There's only one specific line I would have cut, and I think it would have made the movie. I don't know. It's a little nitpick. I think Rhodey ruins a really great moment for Thor.
Oh,
I hate the cheese whiz line. Okay, it's kind of funny, but it's terribly timed. Okay, I hate because seriously, in Endgame, Chris Hemsworth again, the Russos got such a great performance out of Hemsworth and what they were doing with Thor and everything, even with the fat Thor, and some people feel a way about that. Regardless, though, however you feel about the physical transformation, it's such a great moment where he says, "Please, let me do something right." That's such a great moment of acting from him. And then, it's like, the thunders, of course, through. And of course, right before that, Rhodey says, it's in my blood, like cheese whiz, like, F you, Rhodey. Just ruined this moment.
Not to be too out track. I think for Endgame, I think a criticism one could have about the whole Fat Thor situation is that it'd be one thing if you started off comedic and then as the film progresses, like Thor redeems himself and like takes things seriously, even in light of his weight issues, and and the characters around him recognize that. But throughout the film, it's just kind of like one foot in the comedy realm, one foot in the dramatic realm, and I just don't think that kind of like I feel like it would be different if it was like a Thor like solo film where he's in that state and having that kind of back and forth. with characters. But I think in such a film like Endgame, where the stakes are so high and everyone's kind of locked in the mission, I think this is kind of the moments where maybe comedy could have been dialed down, or just have more of the comedy be at the beginning of the film, and then over the course of it, like the comedy dies down.
Hmm.
Um, and I think like Rhodey, I think just
I mean,
Don.
things got pretty serious, and then we threw that line there. It's
No, and that's what I'm saying. I think Rhodey was just kind of utilized as like just like wisecracking, like no nonsense. Like I feel like sometimes Rhodey just gets defaulted to just MCU John Stewart, and I think like there can be so much done for Rhodey, especially in light of where things are in the MCU, regards like a growing distrust of like superhumans, and like where does Rhodey fit among that as like the normal guy that has a suit of armor. Um, but for a reason, there's either just not a lot of strong interest in pursuing that, or a consensus on like what that looks like. So hopefully, Don Cheadle gets his chance to really, show what he can do with this character in a movie or show. I
you know,
mean,
if they ever do the Armor Wars thing, I mean, that would be the opportunity to turn things around. But I don't know.
honestly, if it was retrofitted to like Avengers, um, like essentially like seven, like the next Avengers movie, like post Secret Wars, and like Rhodey was the lead in that, or one of the main leads. I think that's also good as well.
Anyway, okay. So his point being, so with Slattery, I always loved the All Hail the King short that they did. The Marvel one shot.
Mm-hmm.
Which, by the way, I love if you there's like a little connecting through line between all the Trevor Slattery stuff that we've done from there onward. Where if you notice in that short from the director who's secretly a member of the Ten Rings who basically facilitates the prison escape, the first prison escape, Trevor Slattery. He gives him the photo of him and his mother, which he has in Shang-Chi. It's like in his little dressing room area, and he shows off here.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
I've never seen the All Hail the King, and
Really? What? Even after this, you never saw the All Hail the King short?
no, I not no.
It's like 10 minutes, man. Come
It's
on.
just like I that's so many things that I okay. I'll rewatch it short.
I loved it. It was great.
I'm glad though that that's kind of like the through line of continuity, because I think for me it's like Trevor Slattery, his whole feelings about wanting to live with his mom, I think really strengthens his relationship
And they established that the whole like he really did legitimately love his mother and all that.
Yeah, and like, and I think like when he go, I think especially it's even the most potent when we see Trevor at like Simon's mom's birthday.
And he's interacting with Mummy, and I think honestly, I think that's the scene that really turned him. Even before, I think that's what really
Mhm.
it really made him think back.
Yeah.
Anyway, but yeah, I mean, the other thing too, I always loved the All Hail the King. You got to remember, I mean, this is what the years removed aspect really comes out. I think came out in 2014, so a year right after Iron Man 3.
Mhm.
And that was like, I don't know how much of it was per se damage control. No, not the Department of Damage Control. It was damage control for the whole Mandarin, not controvery, but the whole Mandarin upset thing.
Mhm.
But that was like it was the big tease where I think it righted the ship, and it took way too long to get there, but still we got there. It's the idea of like, hey, we established, Trevor, there's a real Mandarin, and he's not too happy. And then we picked that up with Shang-Chi, I mean, years later. But it was always like that was like the first time we said, okay, folks, there is a Mandarin, and he might be coming.
Mhm.
That was always like one of the cool things with that short, and it's Trevor's being kind of the stooge that kind of helps get from point A to point B on that. But yeah, I mean, Trevor's gone kind of quite the journey here. But you're right, this is the best arc in development we've ever had on Slattery. This show here. I mean, you know, I just
It helps that like Marvel is really lucky getting freaking Sir Ben Kingsley to be playing a character who's a joke in Iron Man 3, and then he puts in like
he could have turned on it like Hugo Weaving, man. He could have said, "Well, I don't like all the internet criticism, so I'm not doing it."
yeah, or just say like, oh, that I'm just a movie guy or whatever, and
Yeah.
and the fact that like he's came onto the show and then has one of the best like friendships, bromances with Simon. It's like
It was a
it's
good move. We did bromance instead of a romance this go around. We had like the the girlfriend, the ex girlfriend, and we kind of, we addressed her in a pretty adult, mature way, and we just kind of let it lie. Where it's like, okay, there was a breakup, and they're not getting back together or anything. It's not going to be a focus of the show. It's just, it happened, but it's really all about the bromance.
yeah, and she is one of four actors from Oppenheimer that's in the MCU.
From what?
She and Olivia Thirlby, the actress who plays Simon X's girlfriend, she was not.
Vivian. She was an Oppenheimer.
Yes.
Oh, okay, couldn't hear the Oppenheimer part, so she was in.
Yeah, she's an Oppenheimer. Like, I mean, it's her, RDJ, Kenneth Branagh, and who else am I missing? Florence Pugh.
Also Matt Damon.
That's the one other. Yeah. So, and I think like the fact that like Simon, is so emotionally withdrawn and so paranoid of how the people feel that like when we get to sort of near the end and we become a big star and there's a profile on him, he's so worried that someone is just gonna just talk shit about him or whatever, and he's gonna be made out to be this bad guy or asshole. And the fact that most people just said glowing things about him, and
amazingly, even his brother.
Yeah, and I think part of it is just like Simon Williams in the comics, and I think especially and more so in the show, is his own worst enemy. And so Simon had like in going through the process of really not getting his own way in auditions and in acting from a guy who was in a drug-addled state, manipulated by a corporate CEO to be a false flag terrorist, giving him this wonderful advice about acting, a mirror up to nature. And it's like, it's crazy for a show to be such a love letter to acting as a craft and what it means to embody a performance and give truth to that in film. So yeah, it's crazy for this show to
like Trevor, even though he's in a pinch and he's kind of like following orders from damage control, he is giving him actual good acting advice. He's not like phoning that and like the breathing thing. Like, I mean, you didn't get a sense like he was just phoning in like the acting stuff, did you?
No. I really think that like Trevor unexpectedly found like a kindred spirit in Simon and probably sees a lot of himself in him. And I think it's kind of interesting for Simon, like he's what Trevor would like had Trevor not like fell into drugs or whatever, maybe
he has all the potential that Trevor saw in himself. He's kind of vicariously seeing himself start from the beginning.
Yeah, and like it's you kind of wonder for Simon like what if his mother had passed away like just before the show or even during this time. It like considering how much his mom is like his lifeline, like the line "Thank you for loving me, mommy." It's like he doesn't feel like the love from his own mom is like unconditional. Like he feels like he even has to put on a performance or justify himself to other people to feel like to get love back. And man,
yeah. So I mean, I love like how they meet in the movie theater. I mean, it's just kismet, It's just they have obviously it was kind of a setup, but that's the fact that it kind of grows even despite that. Just they both have a respect for film, and that's not faked. The idea of like,
and they're watching Midnight Cowboy, and
I love the payoff on Midnight Cow. I love the fact that we use the song at the very end of the show. Oh my god, it was perfect.
See, I didn't. So I've never seen Midnight Cowboy. I didn't realize that's great that the song is from that movie. And considering like
it was like the song, it's like the part. It's like the whole iconic part of that movie too.
Yeah, and I think the thing that was really interesting about all this is that I really appreciate when Trevor is like recruited by the DODC. He's like he respects Simon already, like inadvertently, but just saying, "Oh, you can't fake like a Hollywood production. It has to be all real. Like he'll can see through it." It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, an actor would know if he's being played,
Mm-hmm.
which is kind of crazy because which is kind of sad and crazy for Simon to be essentially played by another actor.
Yeah. So I might be reaching here, but this kind of might like thinking back on it like for the rewatch. I kind of picked up on some, given that we open on the father and the son in the movie theater.
Mhm.
We're connecting it as a throwback to, it's obviously we start there, and that's where
Mhm.
Simon kind of fell in love with his passion. He's kind of getting a big kind of moment. You kind of a big lightning rod for where he needs to go with his passion. Here with Trevor.
Sure.
I think there's some kind of there's a bit of a kind of a fatherly, kind of support, like his father supported the arts. I think there's a bit of like a father figure quality in Trevor. I mean, obviously he's more mentor and peer and friend, but I'm just saying I think that there was kind of a connect, and maybe like somewhat of a the mentor fatherly figure that
It,
he's looking up to, or which.
I see. For me, I would kind of describe the relationship. It's like a mix of Harold and Maude and Finding Forrester. That would like
Finding Forrester, I think feels on the money. Yeah.
yeah, and I think part of it is just that like you know it's I think that's the thing. Yeah, the Finding Forrester I think is pretty on the money because it's like you're having basically a guy from the UK, an experienced like a artist, kind of schooling or mentoring this like aspiring artist, both a black guy. Well, it's kind of funny to think about that comparison.
Also, there's a Sean Connery gag in the with Trevor Slater, because of course the wonderful joke running gag of Trevor Slater. One of the reasons he's so much fun to have, especially in this show, with kind of the Barry meets Curb Your Enthusiasm kind of look at the world of acting, is that Trevor has like an infinite past of these temporary or these kind of forgotten roles, and he has all these Hollywood stories and celebrity interactions, and of course like the running gag of the infamy of having played a terrorist. It's just the fact that we he's had all these run-ins, and in the Hail to the King short there he had a interaction with Sean Connery, and he says everyone else called him Mr. Connery. He called me Trev. So there's a little additional connect there.
Which and that's funny to say that because like Simon is the one who calls him Trev.
Yeah.
And yeah. I don't know if I saw this in a breakdown or someone mentioned this. Is that apparently a lot of the roles that like or projects that Trevor mentions, a lot of projects roles that like Ben Kingsley was actually in,
Mm-hmm.
which is kind of fun to mix in that like real life filmography, and
Yeah,
also just
some of them have to be made up for the Pantaleano thing to work, but yeah.
mhm. Yeah, and I think like there's always I think Trevor being like specifically like an older British thespian. There's always that kind of fine like that fun raucous freewheeling kind of energy that you can only have being from that particular background. And I think Ben Kingsley just does that well. It's kind. I never would think that Ben Kingsley would be the type to be just that great at comedy, but to have the great comedy and also the fact he's a great dramatist. Obviously he played freaking Mahatma Gandhi.
You have to remember, Rohit, again, if you watch more of the Albuquerque verse, I think, well, even what you have seen, again, it goes to show you, the rule of thumb is that the greatest dramatic actors can do comedy fantastically, and the greatest comedians, can do drama. Give
mhm.
them a chance. Sorry, I feel like I spelled something out unnecessarily there. I'm sorry for wasting your time with that.
No. It's like it's at the either end of the extreme, dramatic, comedic. You can have a really interesting opportunity to kind of subvert that and do something revelatory. And so I agree with Ben Kingsley. Like he's more traditionally like a like an actor's actor, and so him doing comedy in a way that's entertaining, but not like minimizing sort of his dramatic moments. I think that's what makes Trevor so engaging is that he has the comedic elements from like Hail to the King and Iron Man 3, but there's just like pathos that makes it more resonant when coupled with the comedy.
Yeah. So, Super Billy in the comments, he also, for real quick, Travis Mitchell says, "How's it going, everyone?" He says, "Hello." Super Billy makes a good point here, saying, Slattery to me is more of a surrogate brother, Simon. Given how unlike William's brother, till the end, Slattery shares his dream and understands him and supports him. So I mean, there is a brotherly camaraderie. It's kind of the brother he kind of brother he wish he always had, kind of with the bromance of it all. So I mean, that's not bad. I think that's pretty. So I'm just saying that any way you slice it, the theater meeting in a movie theater, and presumably, as far as I can tell, might be the same movie theater, but it might not be. Just it's point a movie theater, just having that experience. I think it is a sensitive. It's a sensitive place to
and
forge a
and
connection
and,
for
and
Simon.
it's like and it's like and it's specifically like a very it's a movie theater that like people who are hardcore cinephiles would go. Like it's a
Yeah,
small theater. It's it's playing an old movie. Um, it's
not
and
not crowded at all.
yeah, and so that kind of setting, I think, is just a fertile space or like a safe space for like aspiring artists or just artists themselves to kind of just get engaged in the story and not have to think about like, oh, I have to have like dumb kids like texting or whatever, or see like however many ads before the movie starts. Yeah, and then so I think that space, like Trevor, like already knowing like what Simon would be doing on a fundamental level, I think is just kind of the start foundation for where that friendship and relationship really blossoms.
Yeah, I mean, it's in general, just them being like these outcasts of Hollywood and just down their luck. And I just fundamentally, for why the show works, I mean, you're rooting for these guys even before we have the twist.
Hmm.
So it's an ingenious pairing, which I think was just that again. It's this confluence of events of two shows developing because there's a version of Wonder Man does not have Trevor Slattery in it at all, and I don't think it would have worked. I don't think. Let me put it this way: I think had Trevor Slattery not been in the show, I think it just would have been like kind of what the MCU's show problem has been so far, where there's going to be good elements, but I don't think it won't stick the landing.
I
And
think
I feel Slattery's like the missing ingredient that really made it something special. I really do think.
I think if like Trevor wasn't part of the show and if the show was what it was, I think people would not have appreciated or liked Simon as much.
Exactly.
Because I think Trevor is the one that takes Simon out of his own head, out of his own element,
Yeah.
and thus make him feel more alive and human than he probably ever would have felt like before meeting Trevor. And that's kind of where like the dynamic relationship with Trevor is kind of like it's very borderline, if not outright like a codependent relationship, where like Simon really latches on to Trevor and kind of hangs on his every word, because they just see each other, and I think because of that, it's like that just it's interesting that like Simon isn't motivated to just be a superhero at the end of the day. He's motivated to do a superhero thing because he wants to like break out his friend. He cares about, and it's so human and relatable. And so I'm very curious, like down the road, like does Simon eventually transition, or like how do you organically make such a guy like that be like an out and out superhero? I have an idea,
And
but
that's the thing. I love in hindsight. I love that again. Like even going with traditional Wonder Man. Wonder Man does not start off as a good guy. He starts off as kind of the masters of evil get their hooks in him.
yeah, he's basically like
He's kind of misled. So it's the
sure,
whole thing of
he's kind of like the Avengers equivalent of Terra or
yeah.
Cobb. Yeah, and which is interesting because like, he was just kind of a guy like because the whole point for when he was introduced is like, oh, this is a tragic character that will,
He didn't have to do these things if only he was
but
patient and he.
but he redeemed himself at the end, and sacrificed his life, and then from there like comic shenanigans results in his mental blueprint, like mind waves or whatever being the blueprint for Vision, and then he comes back because he was a catatonic state, and the drama of him having feelings with Wanda, and then the whole acting thing, him being West Coast Avengers, him being friends with bromance with Beast, and then he kind of like he just kind of bounces around to like maybe like going back to be like a villain antagonist and like the Bendis era. It's like there's just a lot that's been done, but it's just never like he's had like a few solo runs where are focused on him being an actor in Hollywood or whatever. Um, but it just never feels like to me that like, oh, like there's that one underrated or one writer that's had the definitive take on Wonder Man, like as compared to say the Guardians had like the Dan Abnett run, or Hawkeye has had the Matt Fraction run or
Mhm.
whatever. And so I think for Wonder Man, like the acting thing was really sort of the key to just make this show being its own unique thing. And so you can't really like. I know there would be what assertive Wonder Man fans that have their take on what they want the show to be, but it's like I don't know if any version of Wonder Man, if you were to become an actor, would be as compelling as what the show is. Because I think
It couldn't have worked really. I don't Wonder Man in the MCU like done traditionally. It's too complicated. It's the problem of like we can't do unless we can do a completely separated ground up like without having to worry about the continuity and where we place it. It's simply because he's attached to too many disparate elements like Vision, Tony Stark, look at the X-Men.
well, no, no.
It's too
Because the thing is, you need to take those elements out and just do a more straightforward, like he was with Roxxon, whatever. Like put just
Yeah, you have to settle. The problem is you would have had to settle versus doing the rebooted kind of blank slate approach, which allows you like do whatever you want.
yeah. And the thing is that you were to do Wonder Man traditionally. It's like he didn't start as an actor; he kind of fell into acting. And there's never really a thing about like Wonder Man wanting to be an actor and trying to struggle between an actor and a superhero. It's just like it's like a fun job that's like, oh, hey, Wonder Man, like, how was your thing in Hollywood or whatever? And like, whereas the show, like the like acting in Hollywood is the main thing, and it just so happened to be in the MCU, and it kind of makes me interested to like if we ever had Jessica Jones coming to have her own show. I know there's talks about maybe a special
There's a
station.
lot of talk about it right now.
Yeah, I would be interested if like Jessica Jones was just more of a traditional detective show that yeah, like Jessica Jones has her powers, but it's not utilized as much as say the Netflix version of the show did, or really any other new character that could just be done as a more traditional other genre that happens to be in a superhero universe.
Jessica Jones has a lot of like kind of like Daredevil. There's a lot of crossover potential in terms of clients you take on. Well, honestly, yes, with both clients you take on.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, so where was I? Oh, right. So, so with the rebooting kind of aspect to it, Von Kovac. So there's Lotto Burek, who we've all recognized the face now, whether you've seen Triangle of Sadness or I think more accurately, if you've seen Superman, you know that's Gurkos from
Mm-hmm.
Superman. So yeah, so he plays kind of the parody of the pretentious director, and insert here. I mean, there's a lot of Werner Herzog, maybe a dash of Chris Nolan. There's a lot of Werner Herzog, and I say Chris Nolan mainly because it's kind of like it's kind of the Batman Begins thing, Christopher Nolan, where he had this really, really, really good, really kind of kind of classic film director in the making, who was
Mm-hmm.
then tasked with how would you make Batman? How would you legitimize Batman in a way that the film aficionados would like, and also just that would be able to be palatable and also be commercially successful. And he
Mm-hmm.
did it. So I think it's kind of like basically what if Werner Herzog took on the Nolan challenge. It's kind of what we have with Kovac here, this lauded director. And we should also bring up too. This applies with this guy as well, and just with all the directors we name drop. Like Nolan does get name dropped in the MCU as well as with Slattery. You know,
And NPTA.
yeah, that's it with Paul Thomas Anderson. So Billy, what?
No, I forgot. I didn't hear that part, but yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so Zuberly said Kingsley is one of the greatest, most versatile actors. It's a little weird that he plays a fictional actor in a world where other famous real life actors exist. That brings up that's kind of a really interesting thing in this show is that it's the heady thing that we even it started. I really think it kind of started with probably started way before then. I think the notable example is when we listed off all the time travel movies in Endgame, and we had like the weird nexus of like Hot Tub Time Machine, which features Sebastian Stan in that movie, and you start to have the crossover moments of like, well, certain actors who play other actors in the MCU, like Leonardo DiCaprio. I mean, just throwing out there, he's mentioned, and it's like it's just Leo's supposed to be Wonder Man. All these we're name dropping actors and we're having certain actors show up and we're name dropping directors. So that kind of fleshes out the world like, who exists in this world, who does not. And then we actually bring literally actors who are in universe in the show. And we've been doing this since Iron Man 2, I guess. terms of like bringing like like the cameos and the guest stars of like other celebrities in there. But
Yeah,
it's just kind
it's in a weird way. Like in retrospect, it feels like Wonder Man, out of all MCU properties, is like, as compared to Ironheart, it's more of a spiritual successor to the Iron Man films than anything else. Just in terms of it being taking place in California, and specifically the LA area. And I think, like the Iron Man films, there's a lot of like media narratives and media manipulation,
yeah,
and it's kind of interesting how, like, in a universe where big events happen and like the paradigm shifts occur for our heroes, there's outside of a few MCU entries, we never really get like I say the Iron Man films, this Daredevil Born Again season one, um and then maybe like Spider-Man No Way Home to a lesser extent deal with like like news reports and like public sentiment. But everything else, even if it's like big geopolitical event, we never really get a sense of public sentiment. And I think for this, it's interesting to get like the public like skepticism and fear of superhumans, but not through politics, but through just the entertainment industry, especially when we get to the fourth episode.
yeah. I it was really great. Just the whole movie within a, I guess, what's more movie within a series. You know what I mean? Like the whole movie within kind of the studio MCU kind of thing.
Yeah.
Movie within a movie universe per se. I always was fascinated with the idea, and we've been doing this since like Far From Home with Spider Man. I love the idea of like the documentaries and the biopics in universe, even with like the whole deleted original Wonder Man thing we had in Guardians, the whole like the Tony Stark biopic and all that. Anyway, I just love the fact that I love the in-universe media thing. And mind you, the boys has done this, but they've kind of gone the extra mile. Where it was like we have the literal superheroes in the movies, and that's of course it's a whole thing. It's more in tune with what the tone of that universe is. But just the fact that the MCU touching on that sort of thing with like the response and like all the the usual entertainment that we have that is then reflected in universe, and the idea of like doing a reboot. And they said this is the MCU's kind of way of like addressing the superhero fatigue and the whole thing of like how do we spice things up, how do we we get maybe a little bit of like the director troubles of the past, perhaps just a little bit of like, what if we got like a big name visionary director who has like a thing which everyone, all these girls that we never do, what if we kind of made fun of that? We had
Mhm.
like we had kind of a pastiche of that guy, and we show maybe why this is like the MCU's worst nightmare dealing with a guy like this. I don't know. um but yeah, I mean, it's always the thing. I wish we fleshed out the world building in universe with the superhero movies. But I think maybe it's the risk of becoming the boys, where if that becomes like part of the like full on part of the narrative, it might be too. I don't know.
Well, I mean, I don't think it would become it's become too much like the boys if not going for a satirical bent. I
That's the
feel like
thing. It's like it's a really if we're not saying anything about it in a satirical way, like is it worth doing? I think maybe is
I,
what they're.
I think it's worth doing, especially like I think it's kind of interesting the Captain America films don't really deal with like public sentiment, especially when you're dealing with like it's kind of I think where I say for like Sam Wilson and Captain America and like in Falcon and Winter Soldier, and unfortunately like less so to its detriment in Brave New World, like public
Yeah,
sentiment is dealt with. And I think the fact, and I feel like it's interesting that like public sentiment is more pronounced with Sam as Captain America than what Steve was. And I think if you're having a character that represents like a nation that has I think to be as neutral as possible, and it is a complicated uh, picture, or presents complicated feelings among the rest of the world. Um, I think that is one of the properties that I think public sentiment should be part of the narrative, to one extent or another. I think not to say that every super property needs to deal with like how does the public feel. I think Spider-Man, X-Men, and then characters who deal with things that like impact a lot of people and how the people feel about it, I think is really important. And also, I think any street level, I think is helpful because if you're wanting to defend a community or neighborhood, like giving that neighborhood community like a voice and texture, I think makes your feelings about why the character's going out of the way, risking their lives to save that neighborhood community feel more pronounced and meaningful.
yeah. So with the Von Kovac, Wonder Man reboot, again, just calling out a reboot within the story kind of also, again, I like the meta component of it's, again, like it's adapting Wonder Man in a way we haven't seen before.
Mhm.
I in general, I love that, it fits the actor's struggle in terms of what our hero desires is a very small scale, attainable goal. He wants to land the role of a lifetime to legitimize, what his chosen profession is. So, it's a very attainable, but also with the character, again, kind of a self-important, kind of not selfish, but it's very self. I could say it's going to sound rude, it's going to sound mean, but self-centered goal. That's what he wants for him, and I guess the arc is that he wants that for him, and ultimately, at the cost of getting it, he needs to spring Trevor because Trevor kind of throws it away for him to get that.
Mhm. And I think it's interesting, like with what we know, with what we see with the Wonder Man, the original film, it's like it's a superhero movie, but it feels less like a superhero movie. Not even from like the '90s. I feel it feels more in line with superhero movies of like pulp characters, like
Yeah,
the Phantom, Flash Gordon, Buck. Like I don't know if there's any Buck Roger, like the Phantom. None of the Urban Adventure fans, the Shadow, the Rocketeer, like those kind of characters.
yeah. No, for
Um,
sure.
and I think that's kind of make I think feel like that makes sense for why a director of that kind of purported caliber now would want to be interested in doing something interesting with that, because I think if Wonder Man was like specifically more of like a traditional like American like comic superhero who has a continuity, it would get a little complicated to like, okay, what are the other characters like? You kind of get too meta with it. So I think the fact that Wonder Man kind of feels more of like a superhero from like an earlier age, and I think it's kind of interesting to think about how like in the Marvel universe there was an appetite for superhero stories of like the pulp kind that's like was like more like more classic sci-fi fantasy kind of stories and crime stories whatever, and then when real superheroes come in, like there's not really read for traditional superhero fiction because the world has embodied traditional superhero fiction. um and so I think what's interesting to me, like I kind of wish we got to see like an actual clip or scene from the like Wonder Man movie beyond just the one scene that was like the payoff of a gag. Because what I see, like I need it's I mean I don't know if this movie is going to be an actual was supposed to be like a movie that if anyone were to watch it would have actually thought it's a good movie. Well, the way the characters regarded it and like what we see in like the terms of scenes being acted out, it's like, oh, this feels like a it could have been an interesting or compelling enough like superhero movie, especially with how like Simon like plays his part or like scenes that he reads.
Yeah, I mean, like it's so weird to me that, again, we have him in the outfit for like one scene, and that's the conflict of the show. And this is the reason I think the show's, it's kind of it'd be a hard sell for people in terms of, on one hand, it kind of plays by the rules of like ultimately we build up the costume until the last episode. That's kind of been the pattern of the MCU shows. On the flip side, though, it's kind of the thing of like, okay, so he's not a hero in the traditional sense. There's like really one fight scene in the whole show in that alley, if you think about it.
Yeah.
So it's not really, he's not really a superhero per se. And again, it makes complete sense within the context of what this show is and what he's doing. But I'm saying for mass consumption, it's like it's like all this buildup of a Wonder Man. You try to sell it to anyone who doesn't know who is Wonder Man? Why should I watch it? Well, you know,
I think the show being what it is, I feel like if you were to say like this is just basically a drama about a guy wanting to pursue his dreams of being an actor and finding a friendship in it, and then the superhero thing is just the background setting. But if you
yeah.
come in for the like, I
He
think that's what,
occasionally destroys kitchen islands, but
yeah,
aside from that, though, it's a dramatic acting show.
yeah. All honestly, like you could read like if all the if you were to take this show, take the LCM elements out and retrofitted like his power ish condition or whatever, being like he has like intermittent like anger issues or explosive whatever,
Yeah.
and then like when he kind of flips out or whatever, then Trevor kind of has to like take the fall for it or whatever, and all that. Like then it would still would be a compelling story. It would be
Oh,
fun
for
to
sure.
yeah, and I think for me, I think for even if you are someone that loves and gravitates towards super fiction in all mediums of entertainment. I count myself as one of them. I think if you were to see Simon and Trevor's story and see them as just two outcasts that want to feel less alone and you know fall into like films and just stories, I think that's relatable to a lot of people. I think especially people who consume super fiction. Like
Yeah.
we all like want to be absorbed and escape our problems and be in worlds different from our characters that make us feel something, that we don't feel in our day to day lives. So I think even yes, it's not a superhero thing; it just exists in the superhero universe. I think Simon is a lot more relatable to a lot of us. At least I feel like he's relatable to me more so than other like MCU like leading characters and all. And not that's not to their detriment to make that point. It's just more like Simon in the way the show's going. Like Simon is just a guy wanting to get out of his head and just make something of himself. And I think that's something that we all feel like at one point or another. And so the fact he's able to reach that, and it's like this is the thing that makes the show great. It's like he gets what he wants, but ultimately he sacrifices what he wants in the ending to fulfill what he needs, and what he needs is a friend. And the fact that like because the thing is, you could have had the show if this show was done in a more darker, cynical way. You could have it where Simon, I guess, he has a codependency, but maybe you could have Simon be more villainous or anti-hero and like use Trevor to his own ends, and then kind of abandon Trevor to pursue his own goals and just bask in the glory of Hollywood and not look back. And that would be an interesting direction to take in someone like Simon. But the fact that like Simon like sacrifices all that he wanted, all that he aspired
Yeah,
to,
like
because
Simon could have taken him to a party, could have fallen off the wagon, could have been, a whole.
no, it's just like Simon could have just like pursued his like he got what he wanted. He could have just driven like rode the gravy train for all intents and purposes, and lived the life he dreamed of and what his father wanted. But to sacrifice all that for someone that reminds a lot of him, I think it shows that like Simon, yeah, he's self-centered. He's like he's got this, and maybe you could read that like he probably has a toxic codependency situation with Trevor. But I think my read on Simon is that he cares about people, even if he has a tough time expressing that, because he's scared of how he can hurt someone inadvertently, especially the whole doorman situation of it. We should especially talk, especially
I
about that.
know. We got to talk about damage control first, man. We got to get there.
No, yeah. I think it's really like in the course of the show, he does become a superhero in a certain sense. Like him, like one of the big part of superhero stories is sacrifice. Like the whole Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy is about sacrificing what you want to do with what is needed. Maybe not by you, but by society. And Simon doing that, it's like I think that's really powerful in a way. And them kind of flying off the distance, whatever the story takes, like I'd be very interested to see like does Simon have the opportunity to get back in acting? How do you make that work? But Simon making the choice he makes at the end and utilizing his acting skills to get that it's ingenious. I don't think there's many other superhero things that aren't superhero and still have the character do a superhero thing or achieve the superhero arc in the non-super story.
Yeah, so we should talk about damage control here. So Trevor, he's working with through the DODC, and specifically Agent Cleary, who's been popping up like a bad penny in a couple of the MCU projects here. So since I forget, yeah, I think it was just since No Way Home onward. I think. But obviously we've established damage control since Homecoming, so they're very Spider-Man intertwined in a weird way, and they had a big role in Miss Marvel and a little bit of She-Hulk, and damage control's been becoming since been propping up a little bit more. I'm on the fence. I'm a little iffy on damage control in this show, a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought it was an intriguing reveal. The whole that Trevor's he's kind of he's spying on Simon. It adds a lot of layers to Trevor, and the whole Trevor, as we know and as we see and throughout the show in the arc, from the conflict that he has in the show, that he's a self-interested guy. He's a self-interested guy in terms of like, and we've seen this throughout. Like he will always like do whatever it is to save his own skin. Of course, makes his big sacrifice moment all the better. He's got this arc of kind of seeing the error in his ways, but it's like fundamentally he's been trying to kind of think of a way out of this. Kind of being caught in the middle of this kind of this espionage that he's involved in. He's an actor playing kind of a layered and treacherous role that links up to the film that he's doing with the Barnaby character.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a reveal that I think works really well, makes for a compelling kind of pilot or episode one. It's a gut punch after you, the audience member, are falling for the chemistry between these two, and then it makes all the logical sense as to why he's there at the right moment at the right time. It's not just kismet; it's also kind of facilitated, but there is something real there. So we have our dilemma. So damage control itself, I'm on the fence because honestly, outside of Spider-Man: Homecoming, I think we've basically been turning damage control into shield, which I don't think is what we need. I don't think that's really damage control. I'm not an expert on damage control, but it's fundamentally damage control is like the aftermath and like the logical kind of mundanity of like what happens in the MCU when the crisis happens and where does the technology go. And I think Spider-Man: Homecoming, I think hit it best for what damage control is all about.
Yeah, I don't think I wouldn't be surprised if damage control just morphs into a different type of agency, not just like in terms of like its current function, but also just like name. I think
I got
I think
excited when damage control was announced way back during Homecoming because that was a really great kind of obscure pull. It's kind of like it's not Men in Black per se. It's kind of what the Agents of Shield was at the beginning, but it's sort of like it was the like where it all goes, and it fit very well into what Vulture's story was in Homecoming. And I just love the mundanity there, and it tools for the world building. And
it gives texture to where you have like what if like here's a spy agency who deals with superheroes. Here's sort of like a utility company or public sanitation company that deals with like superhero like aftermaths. Just kind
yeah,
of companies that deal with like taking away debris from demolitions or natural disaster situations, stuff like that.
yeah. So I loved it in that capacity, but now correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, basically that seems so different than like pursuing government agency to which and I know we've set it up in the other MCU stuff, but it doesn't really fix it for me. Is that I don't know if they would have a prison. It's the fact they got this prison they're very proud of and they're trying to make use of, and we've set it up. It was in She-Hulk, and I think we've seen some other places. I don't know. It just doesn't
Well,
really feel like damage control's like whole like mission statement
well,
is,
I mean, because I wouldn't be surprised if in during
And
the
the timing with Peacemaker season 2 is not helping either with that.
with the well,
That's not helping. I'm not saying it's I know it's different, but it's a
I
little
mean,
similar. You got to admit.
in fairness, I feel like that just a thing. Like when you have a government agency actively pursuing superhumans and superhero fiction, like there's like you like having a prison specifically designed to house superhuman individuals. Like that's such a trope that like you can't help but you can't.
Yeah, but I'm saying we have all these other prisons and everything. It just feels like, we're making it damage control. Why damage control? Because well, we don't have Shield anymore, and Sword is like it's literally up in the air. It's up in space. We have no
Well,
idea what to do.
Sword, it feels more to me like dealing with
Intergalactic, it's space threats.
extraterrestrial. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I'm just saying because we're caught with our pants down, we have nothing on, we have nothing with boots on the ground. It had to go to damage control, even though it's not really what damage control does, and we're kind of morphing it into like an alternative shield.
Well, yeah, it just feels more like if Shield was at the outset a more antagonistic organization and not just like, oh, here's just sort of the organization that is able to provide the resources and structure for superheroes for people that would have questions like, all right, how does superhero be able to do X, Y, and Z while managing a day job or whatever. I wouldn't be surprised if like the name damage control just switches out to something that's like more. So I think when you get to what's presumed to be the mutant saga, like the saga after multiverse, damage control will be kind of morphed to be something more specific to like superhumans or mutants or whatever.
Yeah,
And I
right
think
now they're acting a lot like the MRD.
yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if like when the blip occurred in like those 5 years, the like mission charter or the jurisdiction of the damage control was kind of like expanded to maybe be beyond just like cleanup efforts, but also like actively, instead of like, you can damage control can go beyond just cleaning up after the damage. You can just preemptively prevent like damage from occurring in the first place.
Right. Which, I mean, there's a fine line. It just feels like the prison can be justified in terms of like, it's preventing, it's a preventative measure, but I don't know. It just still feels it's a little icky, and it's kind of like,
Well, unfortunately, there's some, like, I think Super Lunch is like political commentary at play, and so I think when we get into sort of the mutant of it all, and sort of that political commentary comes with it, like that is something that's going to be, unfortunately prescient. So I think with the fact that like Simon is a mutant, but isn't like, I think where the show will go, if there's a second season where we'll see Simon and Trevor, I think the mutant of it is going to be part of Simon's story, but it's not going to be the central focus. I think the MCU is going to make an effort to delineate between mutants that are just going to be actively about the mutant like movement, but there are other mutants that just aren't inclined or interested in just being part of that fight and just want to live regular lives.
so I want to hit on Cleary here. So Agent Cleary is so far, from what I understand, we have the guy who played Mr. Milchick in Severance. He's going to be in the new Spider-Man movie.
Tremel Tillman.
Yes, so Mr. Tillman is going to be. I want to say he's Cleary's boss, or at least a higher up than Cleary. Who we're going. I don't know if he's like the guy of Damage Control. Points from the sounds of things, he's going to be a head guy from Damage Control who's going to be in the new Spider-Man movie. So we got to connect the tissue with Damage Control, which through Spider-Man. I mean, it makes sense, but regardless, Cleary's such a prick, man. He really is, and I'm of two minds because as Super Billy kind of said here, I love how Damage Control is a cynical, dysfunctional organization where the personnel only care about justifying continuing to receive taxpayer funds. That aspect of it, I really like the mundane aspect of this. We kind of, on one hand, we kind of humanize Cleary in a way I really wish we did a little bit more of, because we had an episode that almost opens on this scene. And I like the idea we see the perspective of these different characters and their lots in life, where we had like Cleary he's trying to avoid being fired or his department being laid off.
Mm-hmm.
That's why he's pushing for this. So that aspect, I think that's the thing I've been looking for with Cleary. And we kind of had that there. Yeah. And it's just the fact that I think Phil Rosenthal, from a show I can't talk about, he had a great philosophy on characters. Not every character has to be likable. And show called Everybody Loves Robert. Everyone thinks Robert's a cool guy. Something like that. Point being, that guy, he said that, every character has to be likable in that respect. Cleary he doesn't necessarily have to be likable. I would like to get to a place, though, where, we have an arc of at least, I think we kind of understand where he's coming from, but an element of like the guy, his job is supposed to be helping the public. He doesn't seem to care about that at all. And I'm not saying I think the actor's doing a great job of playing the antagonist in terms of like, we, the audience, are rooting for this guy to fail, or we don't want this guy to win because he's going after our heroes, the guys that we like. And he's been doing that. So this guy's like bullying Aunt May in the Spider-Man movies. He's going after Kamala Khan and with the Islamophobia, essentially.
Well, in fairness, in Miss Marvel, he was the one that was trying to hold in the reins of that one other agent. I think you can make I think there are certain characters. It's like you don't have to be likable; you have to be interesting and engaging.
Yeah,
and I think Cleary's
close. He's close to that.
Cleary, I think it'd be interesting for him to think, for someone to really target and say, okay,
this guy was in he was in the Succession. He was good in Succession.
Yeah, so I think it'd be interesting to see, does he genuinely think that the world is safe for superhumans if they are imprisoned or incarcerated or basically put to heel? Because it feels like to me that I think in Miss Marvel he definitely did not like the Islamophobic, tilt of that one agent.
Yeah.
And especially the fact that she was a minor. Yeah. I think with this, it's
You could make the argument he did have Peter Parker's, well-being in mind when he was grilling Aunt May, but then again, he was looking for an excuse.
Well, also, I think part of it is like for say like Miss Marvel is specifically like a low level character, like protecting a neighborhood in that area. Spider Man is a guy he's crossed international, who's went into other countries,
Mm-hmm.
and utilized proprietary technology that has drone like.
Yeah, again, the drones are such a mistake in that movie. God.
Although maybe you can make this I feel like it is a really perplexing decision by Tony, and I think maybe it could be. I feel like it's something that could be interesting if Armor Wars would ever come out. I'd be very interested to see that be addressed with, and maybe the whole point you can make about it is that Tony, for all his desires of being, you know, democratically accountable and wanting to his weapons not fall into like right hands, he never really had a. He maybe just had a too expansive an idea of who were the right hands that has the technology.
Yeah.
But that's not. But that if Armor's thing, I don't know they'll address something like that. But yeah, I think for Cleary, it's like he feels like if you are likely to be more of a threat than just someone that's just helping out, like small petty crimes or whatever. It's not like the UDC is going after like someone like Daredevil or whoever. I think what Cleary is really focused on is like people who can impact the wider world, especially someone that can, someone that's been in other countries or someone that has like basically a walking WMD, which is Simon to a certain
I
extent.
know that's. I mean, that's what's interesting about Cleary here, and this is why I'm like, I'm not completely against what they did or not. It's because Cleary has a point. I just don't think we express that he has a point as well. I think it's a little one-sided here. I think it's like the guy actually has a point. We see it, but we only see it. Like Simon, he detonates by the right like in our penultimate episode he detonates, and that's like giving Cleary like an actual point to, okay, there is a danger here, but then Simon essentially gets off scot free.
Yeah.
And then we bring up like what the ramifications in a very damage control way. We bring up what the ramifications are of this power. So again, there's something there, but I feel you don't really get a resolution to it. And there's a lot of like I'm not saying that they knew they weren't going to get they weren't going in expecting a season two. They have hopes for a season two, but there's no guarantees. So I just feel like maybe there's some stuff with Cleary. I don't think we gave Cleary necessarily a fully satisfying resolution for like what is. But we threw out a bit with Cleary, where Cleary says he could be an asset or he could be a weapon, and the whole asset thing is like, well, where was the asset thing earlier? Did you ever think about approaching him Nick Fury style and telling him, well, this is going to happen or we're going to arrest you right now? Did you ever think about that, Cleary?
Well, I feel like if damage control was more in the forefront of this show, and like Simon was like directly interacting with Clearly or whatever, maybe that would have been presented. But the fact that like damage control is kind of more in the background, um, I think that those what you're looking for is something that would be more evident in a show where like damage control is an active like visual presence in a piece rather than just kind of hey, we're just touching in. Like honestly, you could have subbed in damage control for like any other government agency,
Yeah.
and it just so happened that like it's super powered or whatever. But yeah, I think there's just a long game playing for damage control, and especially when the Mutant Saga, if that for all intents and purposes is going to be the next saga after Multiverse Saga. I think we're gonna see more of an evolution of what that looks like.
I mean,
How
it's,
do
it's nice that we have like three selfish or self-interested characters at the forefront of this show. Though that's kind of interesting to me, though. You have at least to some degree, mind you. I'm not saying we don't. Obviously, Simon and Trevor have their arc. Cleary as well. He's again he's very interested in keeping his job, and he's first foremost. We have to sell our awesome prison.
we gotta justify I appreciate it, like we have an audit. We gotta like the CBOs give us flack. It's I don't know. That's the thing. It's like
That guy he's only it's me with that guy. I want to keep my job, so I'm going to put in the hours and press the boss. And they look, Sam Williams' numbers up But,
honestly, like all three
poor
of these
baby.
characters, especially Simon and Claire, are probably they're probably some of the most realistic MCU characters, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm
So
saying. I'm not saying that thing. I can't even say we didn't do a good job with Cleary. It just feels, I don't know. I'm just. It's either the guy just did too good a job in which he makes my skin crawl and all the right. He's such a punchable character in the MCU to me, who has not gotten punched yet. I guess is maybe, you know.
like either you're long for the days of a Coulson like character and then the government agency.
Yeah, I do.
Well, in our present
I
time,
remember I had a whole thing where Sitwell. I really want. This is always the thing I had with Captain America, Winter Soldier. I remember we had that short, like item 47, and it was like, okay, Sitwell was Coulson's kind of buddy. We established, and Sitwell was presumably he was going to be our the next Coulson, and then we have Winter Soldier. I was like, okay, that's not the case.
yeah, I think part of it is like,
There's no replacing Coulson.
well, also it's Coulson is Fury as well. It's like
Yeah,
I think there's something to be said about sort of the like with Iron Man and sort of the boom in superheroes, how that's kind of supplanted like the traditional vaunted like intelligence community, but Shield being sort of the forefront of it. And that's something that came into place in lieu of Shield or whatever is like a more, darker antagonistic force that's like less about, working with the superhero community and integrating it and more like, hey, we're going to put you. It's kind of, I honestly, I think the mutant saga. I know it's not confirmed, but it's all intents and purposes is going to be what's going to focus the MCU post multiverse. I would not be surprised if government agencies are going to be more in line with, say, Cadmus and JLU than, say, like Shield and classic MCU. And I think part of that is like with the X-Men. It's I think this is the seed, more darker stories that deal with government agencies and the state of society once the X-Men come into the picture,
right.
which is going to be interesting, storytelling wise. But man, it's there'd be very few Coulsons in that kind of side of things, or if they are, they either get compromised or they just have to leave their job, or be a whistleblower or double agent.
All right. So, with all the talk of damage control and why they're on Simon Williams' case, we got to talk about the doorman clause.
Yeah.
So, the door. Honestly, one just in overall in terms of our episode structures. Again, I told you I like the openings of the episodes, but honestly, we have a really nice with the limited series format. I think we really did make the most of it without like going on long with the episodes. And I don't have a length complaint about any of this. It did feel like a really good journey as far as 8 episodes go and how they're pacing and everything. Uh, Dedicating a whole episode to the doorman.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. That was honestly, it might be one of my favorite episodes of the whole thing. I love this episode. I love the origin. See, we established it in the background the doorman clause, and obviously when we established in the Pacoima visit, there is a door. We named it like the doorman clause, and we established like, okay, why is like initially when I saw the trailer, I thought that guy was making a joke about like you don't have any powers, dude. It's like I forgot that. Oh my god, it's an actual. This is like a world building thing we're doing right now. Like you can't be an actor if you have powers. Why is that? We have a whole episode that explains that to us at just the right moment at the halfway point in our story. And this is the reason for all the stakes. And it's a fun episode about an obscure Marvel character. I even recognize this guy, especially when he put on his mask. Like, oh my God, it's him.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, tell him about Doorman.
Yeah, Doorman. So this episode, it focuses on. I can't believe I forget the character's name. I know it's Doorman, but I just trying to remember the civilian character's name. Is it Darren? Is it Darren Davis?
I think so. It's Darren's. They had a lot of D's in the name. It's Darren. Is it Darren or Darius? It's something. Yeah.
So it is DeMar Davis. DeMar Davis. My
Demar
apologies.
Davis.
DeMar Davis. And it's funny that like we see him like this origin story says he's literally the doorman, for like a nightclub in Hollywood. And it's interesting that like unlike Simon Williams, he's not aspiring to be more than what he is.
We offer him an opportunity. He's like, no, I'm good here. I'm pretty content, which is great.
Yeah. And he gets this power. It's like, look, I'm just weirded out by this, and I'll just be me. And the situation arises to where he utilizes
an opportunity for change. He does the right thing.
Yeah, and And instead of like, oh, he'll just be kind of drafted in to be like a superhero or whatever, it's like, oh no, like you're in Hollywood, like just the fact that he saved like an actor, Josh Gad, who playing himself.
I love that we got Josh Gad and the whole J Gad thing. He's literally doing like he's singing like a remixed version of "In Summer" later. Cracked me up.
Yeah, it's very Curb. It's very Curb Your Enthusiasm. The studio Entourage. It's all that's great. And I think like what's really it's like a fun episode that becomes really tragic.
Yeah, I loved it. It was great.
Yeah, and DeMar is just such a like. I think what was interesting.
It's great too that he's like a gag Avengers character too. Like the Great Lake Avengers, which essentially are kind of like the gag pastiche of Avengers, and like Deadpool's interactive. That's why I was really excited about Doorman too, because he is technically Deadpool's interactive with the Great Lake Avengers. Because the idea is like way before we actually put Deadpool on the Avengers, as we kind of saw in Deadpool and Wolverine, Deadpool he's tried out in all the super teams, the X-Men, the Avengers, and when the Avengers say no, goes to the Great Lake Avengers, and they say yes, and it doesn't go well.
Yeah.
And Doorman was was a member, and he was like very snarky and cynical towards him, but that was the whole anyway. Deadpool had a thing for I think her name's
Big Bertha.
Yeah, so it is Big Bertha then, right?
It's Big Bertha, yeah, because the whole thing is that she is a model who
so she's a model who becomes essentially kind of like the Blob.
Yeah, and then in order to go back into her model form, she basically has to like essentially have an eating disorder. And like,
really, so that's literally how she. Because it's so funny. It's like the Gen V thing. Literally, that's how she.
Yeah, yeah.
I didn't know she had to be bulimic to do that. I think they got rid of that over the years, didn't they?
I mean, they may have. My thought process was that Big Bertha, like that's how like. That was sort of the problematic aspect of her character is that in order to kind of go back to her modeling form, she had to basically vomit out all,
Well, here's the thing. So I bring it up because there's a Deadpool special. It's called Deadpool and the Great Lake Avengers, and they basically have like I don't know if it's like it's just this little summer special they did. Joe Kelly wrote, of course, like the Deadpool writer. Mm-hmm. And in that story, there's basically the idea is that Deadpool he's kind of a chubby chaser, at least for Deadpool's pants everything. But the point this is before they kind of put a firm like stamp on that. Regardless, for a time though, Deadpool's into a little bit of everything. He's a ladies' man, and I guess also he's flirting with like Cable and Wolverine, et cetera, et cetera. But before that, there's an episode where there's an issue where in that special he he's going out with Bertha, but in her civilian disguise, which is the skinny supermodel, and he's trying to like, hey, eat all the rolls, would you? He's just trying to get her to be fat. Mm-hmm. And ultimately, it's like they have a super battle, and she becomes fat and everything, and then it's a whole moral of like, oh, Deadpool, you can't judge, you got to accept people for who they are. He says, you know what, Bertha, you're right. He takes off his mask, and then she throws up. She sees how disfigured he is, and so I don't know if the throwing up had anything. I think there was the coincidental vomit, though.
No. So as per the moral wikis, is that so she has the power to increase her mass.
Yeah.
She doesn't have the power to decrease her mass. The only way to decrease her mass is that she has to do vomiting to expel that excess mass.
That must have been where Gen V got it then. That has to. I mean, maybe I don't know, but
I mean, it could be like
could be just in general. Like, how does anyone like reduce size? But
yeah, it could be parallel thinking, and because I feel like Gen V for their power sets, they just focus on what are issues impacting like college students and young teens, young adults.
Yeah.
And eating disorders, unfortunately, impacts, especially young women. And so how do you kind of deal with that in a superpower context? Like, okay, like you have a character whose like sense of self kind of shrinks or like increases or shrinks because of like their disordered eating or whatever. So
yeah. Anyway. Okay, so Doorman. Sorry, back to Doorman. I love the black and white style choice, by the way. So it's not like in the past. Well, I mean, it's in the past, but it's not like in the not back in the days of black and white. Hollywood. It's like a recent thing that's happened, like maybe a few years back.
Yeah, like things like Mank or Belfast, or like stuff that's just like not in the past, but just does the black and white. No, I think it being a black and white episode works because it's kind of
It's also his color scheme.
Yeah, and also I think it's just like it feels like in a way it's like,
It's all
oh
about the shades of gray too. I mean, I know it goes without saying, but it's just kind of like the idea that this guy, he's not entirely good, not entirely bad, and he's just kind of this just happened to him, and the world judged him.
I don't know. I also think like and in my and this is kind of my read of it. I figured black and white because like Simon Williams is watching it on his phone, so not really, like it's not really. Yes, it's stylistic for that episode, but it also could be just like he's watching a documentary about Doorman and or like a news report and it's in black and white, or it could be a thing where it's like someone like took a like recorded it like the actual special, but to avoid copyright infringement, they put it in black and white.
Oh, that's a good. I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
That's a neat idea. I mean, I don't look. I'm saying we saw I think we saw personal moments of the guy, but you're right though. In terms of like whatever section he was on, I mean, it could have been a black and white inverted copyright thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we have I live for the Mundanian things, logical logic, and so I love like the logical rise and fall with fame in the MCU here, where it's a realistic disaster for this character. If he were to, he became a bodyguard for Josh Gad, and it then basically just kind of devolved from took a stunt, basically became a stunt man, which it gives, I think, is a nod as well to the Simon Williams.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, I didn't think of that.
I like to think so. I mean, it's kind of a parallel, something that we can't really do with Simon Williams per se, at least not yet, and it's something something they were able to get in there. So yeah, but it's just this realistic, thing of it's kind of he kind of took off, became kind of a stunt guy, and then kind of tried a little bit of acting. He became a gimmick for the world, and then people got tired of it, which is like that's exactly what would happen.
One of the best parts was like, why not do knock knock? It's more on point with doors than ding dong.
The whole ding, I love the ding dong catchphrase for him, and I love that it was like it's kind of confounded him. And then we have that. I felt so bad for him when he was on the talk show, and the guy was like, he's like, it's all in good fun, right? But it's the idea, like, the poor guy, he can't say no to being like mocked, like, on this talk show.
Yeah, and then his 50 minutes are fame are done, and like the whole the it's funny that this and Across the Spider-Verse has like the scene where
the baby powder thing.
Yeah, and
what was the thing with the baby powder? Was it, why is it bad?
And like it might have just like caused a rash or whatever, something like anything that goes wrong with baby powder impacting baby, you're gonna get a lot of controversy.
Well, okay, gotcha. All right,
yeah, and then for this, it's like, oh wait, what was it? Was it like you put like a potato in a bag, whatever, and it like
that was his thing. It was like the whole like that burns people if they're trying to take the potato. Like it was the idea of like it's Doorman's like the not translucency, but you know what I mean, like the whole like reaching within thing.
Oh, it's like it's kind of like his version of like the Foreman grill.
Yeah, essentially, yeah.
Yeah,
it's like yeah.
And I think do you know like Andre Meadows, the black nerd comedy?
Is that the guy who did the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle stuff?
Yes.
Yeah, what about him?
Yeah, so he did so he was doing a review of WonderMan, and when he talked about the Doorman episode, he said it really hit too close to home. And I think just the fact that like DeMar Davis being being a black guy, he becomes famous, and then the kind of tricky situation. I think it's interesting to see like people like become famous and have like a certain gimmick or stick to them. Like think of like Mr. T, I pity the fool or whatever. It's like they have a catchphrase and they become less of it's not just a celebrity, they're more like a cartoon character that kind of trot it out. And when their 50 minutes fame are done, they're just kind of like disposable. And I think that's, even if what didn't happen to Doorman at the end didn't happen, if what happened to Doorman at the end with the whole Josh Gad thing,
I thought it was a hilarious. So we should also mention too. So the showrunner, but also I think he actually got the main credit as showrunner.
Andrew Guest.
Andrew Guest. He worked on Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and all this Josh Gad stuff feels right. Feels the most Brooklyn. This episode feels very. Andrew Guest wrote some of these. I don't know if this is one of the ones that he explicitly wrote or not, but this feels very just even from a plotting, for the season kind of thing. The whole inclusion of Josh Gad is like a central plot point. The fact that we make Josh Gad, we don't kill him, well, per se, we disappear him, but kind of forever.
So
They've said if they want, yeah, what do you got?
the writer of that Doorman episode was not Andrew Guess. It
Oh,
was Zeke Nicholson.
okay. Well, anyway, yeah. So they haven't. So they've said, by the way, in case anyone's wondering, they said if they were to be picked up, they're like invited to come back for another season, they would solve the mystery of what happens to Josh Gad. But they, like that. I think Josh. I forget. I think Josh Gad's like he's kind of played around with it since the shows came out about the whole thing of like he's just been gone and like Josh Gad will return in Avengers Doomsday, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I don't know. It was just great. It's the idea he goes partying one night and poor Josh Gad. And I liked that it wasn't like Josh Gad was like mean to him or he kind of brought this. I mean, he did kind of bring it on himself, but not no, like not like he wasn't like rude or mean to the guy. Just I don't know. It's like that Josh Gad is he's kind of led to his own kind of disappearance here, and this poor guy just feels really bad about Josh Gad disappearing within him. And so it's a perfect controversy for Doorman to be involved in, where it's basically it's the Nightcrawler risk. It's kind of the whole thing of like Nightcrawler, he has to see where he's going, or else he could risk like being caught between things. And it's like the horror if you think about it, like if you don't know where you're going, if you're going to come out the other side, or like my fear, like with the whole fire escape with Doorman, is like he says, like, hurry, this isn't easy. It's like, oh God, what if he gives out or his muscle gives out or something? What if my hand gets cut off? That's what I'm worried about.
Yeah, and yeah, the fact that like Doorman just was just feeling bad about himself and drank a lot
Yeah.
just to kind of feel less bad, and it kind of put him in a worse situation than.
Some parallels to Trevor, perhaps a little bit there.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good
See,
point.
Doorman, he's a catch-all man. He's got it all, and also he fits into the damage control, so he fits in all three.
Yeah, yeah.
The struggling actor. He's the struggling actor. He's definitely the risk, but again, he wasn't really like endangering the public. Just Hollywood corrupted him, and that's kind of what turned him into a danger to the public. But really, it was a media spin, and even they realized that. Like, I don't think Doorman's in prison or
No,
anything.
but you know what's funny about all this is that his name is Doorman. By him gaining powers and saving Josh, like a door was open for him that he didn't think was really open. Because think about at the beginning, it's like he's not like an aspiring actor, and that's the thing that was like that I think was really interesting. Like he's fine just being a door guy, and then think when he's given that like taste of fame and and attention, it's like he's addicted to it to
Mhm.
a certain extent. And I think that's like an interesting point of commentary for like people who I was like, oh, like I'm good, I'm chill where I'm at. I don't feel that like you don't really know if you don't want, the high life or the good life or whatever until you get a taste of it and just like you want more of it.
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting that DeMar like was he just someone that maybe wanted to be actor, just wanted to be known by people, but eventually over time just grew to accept it and made peace with it. And then when given the opportunity, it's like it's kind of maybe put him back to a younger I think Doorman is a character that would love to explore more of his psychology. And maybe imagine like if a season 2 or like whatever we see of WonderMan and Simon, like they get to interact with Doorman and like say and like bring Josh and like saves Josh Gad or whatever.
That would be really that. Think about how beautiful that would be too. Because one, it's like Sam Williams obviously having kind of some, it's like kind of a shared experience with this character and kind of coming to grips with the whole why damage controls after him and like evaluating the whole power risk and everything. But also being able to redeem Doorman in a sense, if you could help him out and kind of help him straighten out his career in which way he'd be kind of saving himself, but he's also doing something selfless to help Doorman, which is kind of heroic. I mean, that'd be really nice.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so a few comments I gotta try and shout out here in relation to the Doorman stuff. Okay, hold on. So Super Billy's bring up, he seems to really not be thrilled with. This is kind of like I think Kamala Khan had a bit of a similar thing. I think there's the whole mutant mutate thing. So I thought it was funny how they turned Doorman a mutant into a mutate and WonderMan a mutate into mutant. Yeah, we did kind of pull a reversal on WonderMan here.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit. Yeah, the whole mutant thing in the MCU has been it's not touch and go, but it's been definitely something they've been kind of feeling out and trying to get a grasp on. Like, for example, like technically the way we've played it, I don't. You could always say maybe it's a turn of phrase, but at least the way it's been presented, one Wakanda Forever, Namor, kind of the first mutant,
Yeah, I
which
mean,
I mean, it's kind of accurate. I think.
yeah, I think he would be. I think no, because the thing is, like, he's a mutant by like the way that Beast and Professor X were mutants. Because like I just think I remember that like their parents or whatever like were like scientists that like were maybe had like radiation exposure or whatever, and that like altered their genes to where like Beast and Charles like had the X gene, as compared to like other characters who where the X gene just randomly showed up in their DNA without
Yeah.
their parents having like altered their DNA inadvertently. Um, so I think to a certain extent, like you can make the case that Namor had that has like the Professor X way of being mutant, and then like Kamala Khan is a mutant, by just having the X gene like show up like separate and apart from like the whole Bengal situation.
Yeah.
And I think it'll be, I think for the Mutant Saga, I know like in saying like this is not confirmed, but I feel like for all intents and purposes, it's going to be the next like focus, like Marvel post multiverse. I think Marvel is going to expect have a white net of characters where there's going to be a lot of mutants, but not every mutant's going to be radicalized or pushed into the orbit of being part of the X-Men and the Mansion and all that stuff. And I think that's good to a certain extent, because even in comics there are a lot of characters who are mutants but don't feel like they don't have their mutant status be like an identity in and of itself as say the X-Men are. So I think for Simon, I think him being mutant is just kind of, it's emphasizing him being an outsider, because he has something that like is within him, and he can't control. He can't like it probably something because when his that whole fire situation, like he's kind of like a young teen. I think probably in the cusp of being a teenager, already a teenager. So like you kind of feel like, oh, he's like growing pains of puberty, whatever, and him not having his dad around, like adds to that kind of stress and feeling of being alone. And so I think him being a mutant works for the story that they're telling. And I think it'll be interesting to when, you know, like if there's follow with Simon, like will it be known that he has powers, or he like broke out Trevor or whatever. And I think like if we get to revisit Simon, post multiverse saga or whatever, I think he'd be an interesting example of like how certain people will accept certain types of mutants in certain positions in society, and will not accept how mutants kind of advocate for themselves another way. Kind of how people have very like touch and go feelings about certain groups of ethnic groups or whatever, depending upon their like position in society. It's like, oh, you like so and so person, or they're an athlete or a musician or whatever, but not if that person of that group is like advocating for their rights or self determination.
Yeah.
So
But yeah, man, I like the whole with the powered thing though. It's the idea that this doorman clause has like kind of had a ripple effect in Hollywood, and it's very discriminatory towards I guess enhanced and or mutants or however you want to label it. But again, it's just this thing of like because of I imagine the guilt that Doorman has over this as well. That he again it really makes you want to see Doorman interact with Simon Williams. And again, like really early, he says he kind of praised it for we didn't contrive like Doorman as like a bad guy or like someone trying to like get at odds with Simon Williams is like the climax, like a forced climax of the show, which in most cases the MCU shows have kind of struggled with the endings, and we didn't have that at all here. So we didn't,
or they didn't have like a big like blowout fight against like
yeah,
DODC agents or office or whatever, or had like a big like face to face confrontation with Cleary. Like he doesn't like it's kind of like it's like it's like not like how Miss Marvel is like, where she was like in the middle of protecting her community from DODC agents or whatever. Like in this, like Simon just kind of going through the eternal struggle, and then his involvement at DODC is just breaking out of Trevor from that prison.
yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So, um, I want to talk about I want to talk about William's parents, his family here. So let's put the Koima visit real quick.
Mhm.
So, like I said, Mark Bernard, I'd love to hear his thoughts on that episode specifically when we go. We kind of see the Haitian black experience, which I mean, to Super Billy's point earlier on, it's like a thing where it is in the background. It's not a thing that's like predominantly, it's going to take away or like kind of rob everyone of like a universal experience of the show, but it does add like kind of some nice kind of culture, and this adds like it's not as forced as other attempts we've made it. Like for example, Echo, it really coats the show, and it really just like it's a lot of distraction from what the main story is, and I think we do there's a lot of sometimes when we have like the backgrounds of the characters, it's I don't know. I think it worked a lot more naturally and to the benefit of the story without getting in the way of the story. It was so much more natural here, and also doing it in like one episode, I think really helped as well. Like Echo was a whole thing of like I hated what we did with her power set. I hated the whole, like the basically generational trauma is kind of her superpower. I didn't like it. It's the whole, I don't know.
Yeah,
I know it's a reductive way of putting it, but it's just, I didn't like it.
I think it's. I feel like that the way those power, like, I think the idea is interesting. I can understand why people's power, like, I think for me, because the story of her like going after Kingpin, or like the revenge, that she has against Kingpin for his involvement in her father's death, that was already done in Hawkeye. Like, I feel like the Echo needed to have been done much differently. To where honestly, if it was just like a straight up like crime drama that took place on a reservation, and there's very few elements connected to the MCU, I think it would have worked much better than kind of being in this middle place where it's like, oh, it's just far removed from the wider MCU, but still has MCU elements in it, especially Kingpin. And the fact that there was like a supernatural element, it was just like it felt like the show just couldn't accept like Echo being just someone who uses her bot like power mimicry or whatever, because then it's too close to time. Like
I don't think she needed powers at all. If I remember in the comics, I don't think she has powers.
but she doesn't have power. No. She just like she like I thought the whole thing was that she could mimic like other people's like body movements.
Well, yeah, but that's it. That's what I'm saying. It's almost like a vaguely Taskmaster-esque ability. It's like a learned ability, which is great. I'm just saying it's not like it's not like a super like it's not like a we're not in the place. The thing I hated about Echo is that we have a really big plot point that brings us into Daredevil Born Again, in which she works some mojo on Kingpin that's basically going to mystify like character development. I hate that. Because then we're stuck with that when we have Born Again, and we have to try and walk back from that and like, okay, so he's doing things we don't fully understand because of Echo.
Yeah, I think if the show, I feel like if they were doing like about Native American generational trauma, it would have just been more focused on that, and then the Kingpin stuff would have just kind of been at the end, like kind of just like, oh, after all that's done, and then maybe like that's the thing. It's like Echo. I feel like when the whole Marvel Spotlight thing came about, it's like, oh, it just feels like kind of a retroactive way to like kind of just make Echoes like dumping all the episodes in January not seem as like they just no faith in the show. It's like, oh, it's very far removed. I think WonderMan, for all intents and purposes, justifies having something like the Marvel Spotlight banner.
Yeah.
Because it's very much a show that is just it's a Hollywood drama that just takes place in the MCU. And it's not like utilizing the MCU formula. Whereas I think Echo is just kind of an awkward in between, where it is kind of more of a crime drama, but it doesn't go all the way in, but it's not all the way in the MCU. So it's kind of that awkward middle, and it's kind of the worst of both worlds to a whatever extent. And I think that's like, I'm hoping that if the Marvel Spotlight banner continues post Secret Wars, that shows that come out under that banner are shows that I think are just going to be shows that could have come out like outside the MCU, but just happened to be in the world of the MCU. I think
I think Spotlight's a great idea, and I think if they do stuff like WonderMan, that's going to be great.
Yeah, and WonderMan, like just doing shows that happen to exist in the super universe, but
like the Punisher thing is going to be a Marvel Spotlight, right?
No, Marvel is going to be Marvel special presentation.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Sorry, I conflated the
Yeah.
two there. But you're right, though. And basically, it seems like basically special presentation in kind of a serialized way is kind of what Spotlight is. Not
But
exactly,
really,
but
and really, Doorman could have been like is basically a special presentation.
yeah, exactly. I've been loving the special presentations at Marvel so far. I don't think we've had a miss if memory serves.
Yeah. Although there's been rumors about it not being like as big of a hit, like in terms of the number side of things. So although there's the Punisher thing, like that's the thing. It's like
I think Punisher's going to do good for special presentation. I mean, everyone's
I
going to watch that.
yeah, I get, but that's the thing. It's like it's just 1 hour. It's like how often do people like rewatch special presentations?
I mean, you're watching Werewolf by Night at least on an annual basis, as well as Guardians. They have two holiday things on an annual basis. That's I
I
don't
mean,
know.
no, but like I feel like there's more people who rewatch MCU movies and MCU shows.
But who has the time?
I mean, that's the thing. Like with MCU movies and shows, because of that like expanded time, whether it's an hour and a half, 2 hours, or whatever, like 4 hours or whatever, it's like the more time you spend with a character, it's like you feel more inclined to revisit it because it's like that experience. Whereas for a special presentation, it's a fun like enter the story, but that's it. So it's like you're just kind of like I can see why our special presentation may not be the most economically successful, but if you do it on the cheap, and if especially actors that like are utilizing characters that are pre-established or whatever, it's like it can do decent enough, but not like it won't be a big like hit on streaming as like an MCU show or when an MCU movie comes into streaming like after like a theatrical run. So, but no, I think Marvel Spotlight like I think I mean if you had traditional damage control, like that was just like a blue collar, like working workplace comedy that just happened to be the MCU, does not have too many MCU connections. Or I think that's the thing. It's like if shows that just are like a legal drama, medical drama, whatever you can think of, and they just happen to be the MCU and the MCU connections are very small, I think that's a good use of the banner.
All right. So with the Pacoima visit, so we have his mother and his brother Eric. So of course, brother Eric it's a nod to Grim Reaper, but I highly doubt we're going to go the full 9 yards with that guy down the line, even if we do a continuation.
I don't think the Grand Reaper is going to happen.
Yeah, but I mean, I like that symbolically he was kind of, because again, the Grim Reaper, he puts things into play for Simon Williams. So in a sense, he is kind of, he is still kind of responsible for a lot of that. But in the sense that, in the capacity that makes sense for what this, kind of our actor version of Simon Williams would be going through. He's the successful one. He's really laying into the Simon towards the start there. He's not giving him an inch. He's a real jerk to him at that birthday party. I mean, I really thought the ice cream maker was a very wonderful gift, and he had no right to really, to grill him over that like he did. I felt, and it's part of the drama of the show, so it's obviously the thing that we kind of need. I'm just saying, in terms of Eric, was despite Eric kind of having a point, and he's calling out the selfishness, and then he's taking care of the mother, he's getting the money for the mother, but he's no patience for the acting profession, though, which that's the divide right there. I want to say, in the sense of he was very much the father's death probably impacting them, it's sense of like he's closer to the mother, he was closer to the father. Or I'm not saying there was a divide between Simon and the mother, I'm just saying that sometimes certain kids kind of gravitate towards the parents, or a circumstance kind of gravitates them towards the parents, and that's kind of where they ended up. He's trying to honor his father, he's trying to honor his mother, and that's kind of where the schism comes in.
Yeah.
But the ice cream maker gift was really nice. I love the actress and the mother. I think I've seen her in something else. I forget if she's on Bob Hart's Abishola, but
Yeah, she's on Bob Hart's Abishola.
Oh, that is her. Okay, good. I wasn't crazy. I thought that was her. Yeah. Anyway, but yeah, she's wonderful. The scene that she has with Trevor is everything, because that's really what jumpstarts Trevor making the leap to, like, he's trying to find a way out of the damage control arrangement slowly but surely. It's great. But the destruction I felt for Simon in that. We've all been in that scene. We've all been like angry at like family or life, or a frustration, and so that's the role. I think that's fundamentally why we're invested in what Simon's going through beyond what we've seen up to that point. That's the universal. Like we've all been stressed out, and that's kind of that's what Simon's power is representative of. It's like the stress and the doubts and the nagging family, and it's just it's the destroys that poor mummy destroys her kitchen island, which she was so proud of.
Yeah.
And again, it's destruction in the kitchen with the powers, and we kind of hit on this has been kind of a thing in the family. They know about it, and he's been keeping it under back. And there's no sympathy from the brother.
Yeah, and I think when the whole money thing comes about, that is such a real conversation.
Yeah, it's a very real conversation.
And like the thing is, you can feel, and I feel like
I love that his brother is not entirely he is offering him a job. The brother does want to help him. He's a good brother in that sense, but he's also a right prick, to put in the English sense.
But at the same time, if you're in his brother's shoes, you can kind of understand why you're not too jazzed about how Simon's been living his life.
Exactly. So again, he's not. Again, it's in a right. I love the gray that we're in here. He's not. Everyone's kind of got a point.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, we should also mention Joey Pants.
Oh God, that was such a fun segment to see.
So this is where we get into like the very Barry / Curb Your Enthusiasm kind of side of things here. So the idea of the self tape and just the quest to do the self tape, and it's just this great kind of farce of like to fulfill his espionage mission. Trevor needs to get into the apartment, but again, it's Simon's kind of trying to distance himself from the apartment right after the breakup happened, and they're just trying to find somewhere to self tape. We have this hilarious. I don't know. I didn't know that places like this existed. I'm assuming they do. You have like the self tape like studio place, but apparently they have to read the sides, which is the whole point of we were coming there. So Trevor can read the sides and deliver a really good tape. And the woman's completely incompetent. Reading the sides.
Yeah.
Which is just hilarious. And they try all these places, and he's like, "Well, Joey Pantoliano owes me a favor because he stole my role. We're gonna go there," and we have this hilarious fictionalized version of Joey Pantoliano. What'd you think?
Oh, he's great.
And then the second Marvel thing he's done.
Oh,
yeah.
Also, I saw in the comments earlier, I don't know if you had a chance to see it, with the way the show ends, and also the fact that Yaya is in the latest entry of this particular franchise. WonderMan, basically referencing on the Matrix is kind of a fun thing to have noted.
Yeah.
I do appreciate it. I think you mentioned it way earlier on. It's like the whole like Joey Pantaloni's advice to Simon's like, you gotta treat acting like a job. You put more to it, fame or whatever, you're gonna lose it.
I love that too. That was a really good, like him, just like the kind of the soulless version of the actor's play. It's just like it is all about money and success. These are the Saul Goodman kind of philosophy on acting.
I didn't read him saying it's like because it was more.
Okay, soulless was a little harsh. What I mean. I think it's a very money focus.
I think Joe Pantolo's whole thing was that you treat it like a job, which means it's not to say you don't take it seriously.
Yeah.
You take it as like, hey, you're expected to do this and that, and putting more into it, like as in, I think as Simon, he doesn't see it as a job, he sees it as a calling.
Yeah.
And then
Trevor's whole identity is a calling.
Yeah, and then DeMar was like his whole thing was like he's like, oh, this is an opportunity to be famous and celebrity, all that. It's like I think Joe Pantoliano, like this is a perspective from a guy.
He's giving good advice, but it is advice from like a guy who's a very seasoned actor who's like, okay, well, this is the actor who's done it all is in a place of like, sometimes you have.
Oh, it's like a privilege statement.
What?
It's like it comes from a place of privilege to say like, oh, treat it like a job, and it's like, yeah, you're the one who's like living in the nice place, while like the guy who's like wanting to make big or make something of their craft is like struggling to make ends meet or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I love that Joe. I imagine Joe Pantoliano does not live in as fancy a place as this would be my guess.
I don't
But
know. Maybe I don't know. Maybe the Matrix
I'm
money.
not saying Joe hasn't done well. I'm just saying that I think it was like in playing the fictionalized version stuff. You're actually really successful. I think that may have appealed to him. I'm just throwing it out there.
Hey man, Matrix and Last of Us, they're successful in their projects. You can get those. I mean, I don't know. Maybe the
Look,
royalties.
I imagine. I'm saying Sopranos alone. I think he did pretty well. I'm just saying I don't know. I don't know like if he could afford a place. It's a really nice place. Like the whole thing of like he has a chef. I don't buy that Joey Pantoliano has a chef. Okay, I'm going to say that much.
You know what? That's totally fair. The chef
That's
thing.
all I'm saying. The chef felt like okay, this is just we're
Because
stretching it a little
because
here.
like not to get to the nitty gritty of like real estate, like he could have acquired the property at an earlier enough time,
Yeah.
and then the real expense is not like the mortgage; it's more just like the renovations done to make it as nice looking as it is. Yeah, the chef thing was like, yeah, like especially taking the chef away from McConaughey. It's like no, it's more like McConaughey would take whatever chef you had.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see. So anyway, I loved him. So I really like that we called out Joey Pan. Obviously, Joey Pan in real life he's probably a lot nicer than this fictionalized version.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. But it's always cool, always good to see actors like willing to portray not the nicest versions of themselves. Because like,
Again, very Curb Your Enthusiasm like too when they played like the more petty version, like Ted Danson. It's the petty versions of himself.
mhm.
Anyway, yeah, I love they not only are we mocking Baby's Day Out, but it's a nice moment where he's very much like kind of like he's tearing down Trevor and then trying to say, "Oh, that's great, Trevor." Like Simon is calling him out, like, "Hey, don't do that, okay? Don't patronize him like that. You're very being very fake with him right now. It's not nice."
Mhm.
That was, that was a good bit.
Yeah, and I think Simon had that feeling because he also got like kicked out of a show.
Yeah, yeah, the American Horror Story. Yeah.
Yeah,
I love that even he was too much for Ryan Murphy. Then that's saying something if you're too much for Ryan Murphy. The guy's
yeah.
got issues. Anyway, let's
And
see.
also, this is the second time. You know what's funny, Dragon?
Hmm.
If I had a nickel for every time a superhero show or like a superhero miniseries starring Yao Abdul Mateen that had a reference to Ryan Murphy in a project of his, I would have two nickels.
Where'd you get that reference from?
The no, it's from it's no, I know it's like did I screw up
The two
the
nickels. Where'd you get the two nickels from?
no, it's from Phineas and Ferb.
I know. That's what I wanted to be. So it is from Phineas. Okay.
Yeah, it's a Doofenshmirtz
Yeah,
show.
yeah, I know. I know it's doing. Do a whole recap on Phineas. I just wanted to think because Tinky's been pulling it. You've been pulling it. You're pulling it because of Phineas. Okay, it's what I wanted to know.
Yeah, and do you know the other property that has because
What?
remember Watchmen miniseries
Oh, yeah, you're right. Yeah.
story. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it does. It's a good point.
yeah,
Of course, also we should shout out Joe Pantoliano. Of course, Joey Pants was not only in Sopranos, but was the original Ben Urich in the Affleck Daredevil.
yeah.
Yeah, it was good. It was good Ben Urich. I mean,
Yeah. And had a really good guest role in the second season of Last of Us.
Okay.
Yeah.
Joe Pantoliano, he shows up on Memento. He shows up in a lot of stuff, and he kills it. Pantoliano is he's a pro.
Mhm.
It's also very apparently he'll try and steal roles from me apparently too. So as we learned in the show. Okay. So and we also want to just quickly share. So there's like a kind of a Barry-esque misadventure, the aftermath of like the one action scene. Which, by the way, I was so pleased to see him pop up. Joseph Reitman. He was in Happy. He was the demented Santa Claus from Happy, and he's been in some Kevin Smith stuff because he was married, divorced now. He was married to Shannon Elizabeth.
Mhm.
I think it's Shannon Elizabeth. I think so. Anyway, um, Hope I'm not thinking of the wrong girl on that. But anyway, point being, she one of the Kevin Smith alumni. But yeah, so he was, like the drug dealer, like the drug debtor, for Trevor Slattery. So
Oh, the guy with the long white
yeah, the
hair.
guy with the gray hair and like that guy, he's psychotic Santa from. Did you ever see Happy?
No.
Yeah, it was good. Unfortunately, it's not streaming easily anymore as it used to be. It used to be constantly on Netflix, but yeah, it was good. That adapted a comic, the first season, which it's it's themed to a holiday. There's Christmas and then there's Easter, and the Christmas one is anyway. I forget if Morrison did that or not. He might have. I'm not sure. I think so.
Oh no, I think Morrison did make the original Happy comic.
Yeah, the comic when they adapted into a show was pretty good. The first season's really good. Second season, well, I mean, look, I liked it. I don't think it wasn't as good as the first season. Anyway,
Mhm.
point, but they have like one action sequence gets caught on a GoPro, and we have this very, almost very just like it's like this the farcical like okay we gotta chase down this GoPro. The end up it just ends up it devolves into craziness like this whole peach ring candy operation, which then gets into a shootout with the cops. It's a whole it's kind of funny.
Yeah.
So again, like a lot of these Hollywood kind of stuff. Anyway, so we have our big audition. They've landed, but they're on no sleep. They do the callback, and we see the very artsy, very enigmatic, Von Kovac just really messing with the actors audition for the roles. And we have some really tender scenes between Kingsley and Mateen the second.
Mm-hmm.
The whole yeah.
Yeah, I really love them like doing their audition at Von Kovac's mansion, cause and also just the lead up to it.
I
I
thought the shoe thing was funny. What did you think?
I honestly could see someone making that kind of like decision because they're just overthinking. It's like, oh, they're European, or they're just like, shoot, you don't want to shoot the brag big and turn like it. Simon Williams, like it never comes from a place of being super irrational. It's just more like he just gets stuck on a train of thought and he just can't let it go because he is so afraid of like causing discomfort or doing something wrong to someone that like he just doesn't like he already inconvenienced someone in the act of not trying to inconvenience them or whatever or do wrong by them. But I do appreciate like when they're like kind of doing like acting exercises. Simon Williams just can't like do something on the fly. And I think that part, and I think it's so indicative of a character thing. It's like he so needs to be in control that he can't just like do improv or be free flowing because he needs like a script. He needs something to ground it, or else he's afraid of losing control. Which I think, like having because when you think about it, like Simon is probably one of the more like potentially powerful characters in the MCU, and I think with that kind of power level, you can't really have him just be like fighting dudes and or just like shooting energy beams like and be kind of be typical MCU stuff. You kind of have to make like characters who are that powerful have more inner turmoil than not just have them roll over everyone in fights or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah, the nightmare scene too. I mean, where he's well, he has like the fake out where he punches through the guy's head. But someone pointed out it was really funny. Someone pointed out, like I think I read in a comment somewhere or something. Like someone pointed out, well, per Doctor Strange, that happens in a multiverse because all the nightmares technically are just like peaks at the different multiverses.
Yeah.
There's a world in which he actually killed that guy.
Yeah, it's a good. That's something I you when someone mentioned that point, it's like, oh, that's a interesting to think about because I don't know what like I mean, DODC would just kind of like come in droves and just like take Simon to jail and all
It
that.
was a great, shocking moment, though, wasn't it? When he punched through
Yeah,
that guy, I was like,
I didn't expect like because it just felt so real, like the freak thing, because it's like I feel like the devil's like the dumbass friend thing comments because like that's such a weird like in retrospect that's not a comment you would expect anyone to say, and when Simon just like hits him and then like pulls his fist back. He's just kind of in shock that he did it.
Yeah.
Because it's not like, oh, he's angry and he's kind of stewing the anger. It's like, oh, he just had a moment of anger and just so it's such an out of body experience for him that he just doesn't know what to do it, and then he wakes up from the dream.
Yeah. So so they have a really good audition together, which again I love that the subtext of the scene is again it's like the betrayal that's actually happening with Trevor is actually like, fueling the scene because it's kind of a little acting, it's kind of the slight division between real life and the world of fiction.
Mm-hmm.
And they land the roles, and this is great. We have like an episode where things are actually going really well for them. It's an episode of success where they're number one on the call sheet. It's all going pretty well until the Kathy Freeman article.
Yeah, I love that. There's that one reporter who like people are afraid. So um, there's this one journalist from the New Yorker.
Yeah.
He has this reputation of like when he does interviews like over the phone or whatever is the subject, they just do not ever come off as in any great light. He just kind of eviscerates them, not like overbearing them. He just certain questions that like the way they answer, at least the follow up questions, that just leads to that subject just digging their own grave. So it's kind of fun to see like someone with that kind of reputation and like an entertainment reporter. And it's not like them and their direct questioning. It's more like, oh, we asked around like so many people, and there's these current qualities and like a way a journalist or writer can find an observation from someone and how that's like you can be come off as like a dick or a douche, like, oh, I'm being Joseph Gordon-Levitt. It's like, oh man,
I love the pigeon joke was really I love how it was like unexplained. It was like, what did he do with the pigeon?
I I'm not look into this. I bet if it was based on a real thing, I bet it's like maybe Joseph Gordon-Levitt when he was a kid or whatever, like was really into magic,
Mm,
and maybe he was trying to do like a magic trick involving pigeons, and something went wrong.
mm,
But I don't know. It could be just a thing where it's like so many celebrities just have like awkward or unfortunate incidents or things happen that can be misconstrued to like say more of the character than actually is. And that's I think Simon's worry. It's just like I wonder for a lot of actors that make it big or just like people who are in the know, it's like, oh, like how do you just not feel afraid of how you're perceived by like the broader public when someone does a profile on you.
mm, yeah. Let's see. Oh yeah, so with so the scene so of course after the interview everything seems they seem to be in the clear, everything seems to go. We checked in with Vivian and everything, she knew he had powers, but she kind of kept them down out of respect. Brother did, Grim Reaper, as Superly kind of pointed out, it was nice that Eric didn't have a Grim Reaper turn at the last minute or just like really screw him over or anything. So that was refreshing.
Mhm.
They actually had an arc, at the premiere and everything, which was even better. Also, Travis Mitchell pointed out, like I saw it that like Eric took most after his father with the cooking and then helping his mother, despite that Eric is envious of the bond and the time Simon had that maybe he didn't get, which I love. It's kind of like to put in like terms of the Better Call Saul thing. I know I bring it up a lot, but just it's kind of like fundamentally the way Michael McKean played Chuck. The way they really went was that Jimmy, he was jealous of his brother in that his brother, in relation to the mother, Jimmy made her laugh, Chuck made her proud. That
Mhm.
was kind of the divide. That's kind of what he used to play. There's always like that jealousy of the sibling in one capacity, even if you have like the same perennial bond. It's just like, it's the fact that he did everything, but he could never really, relate to her on that personal level.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah. So Appointment the Truth comes out where Trevor tells Simon the truth, and it is like it's the heartbreaking liar reveal scene, man. It is the heartbreaking betrayal, and it's the parallel to the WonderMan film, which is the Barnaby or the Barnaby betrayal
Yeah.
in real life, and it's just again, it's a very again, I love how we're not playing the cliches of the scene. We're not playing like the way Mateen the second, you just you see the hurt, but you see the acceptance of the hurt. It's almost like a validation for the loneliness that he's felt. And
Yeah.
we've said that we set up that he grew up feeling very lonely, and like the mother was very concerned about his loneliness, and this is just like the only friend that he's ever had has just it was all based on a lie.
Yeah, and I think the fact that like he was so in anger, so in rage, and he was just went out to just find a place to like rent out, and because of his powers, like he causes so much.
Destroys the soundstage.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And Trevor seeing all that is like he feels like he caught like his revealing of his betrayal as leading Simon to, because the thing is, had Simon been able to control his emotions right there and then, Simon would just feel betrayed by Trevor, and I don't know, maybe parted ways, or Trevor could have left the project or and gone to jail. But I think it's interesting for like Simon to put himself in a situation to where he could have been taken away by damage control and been like doorman, but Trevor, being a absolute true friend, sacrificed his freedom and reputation to have this young man who he's been friends with for however long he's been with, have a chance to live the good life and be a respected actor.
One of the best scenes when Trevor, the way in which he falls on his sword here, I love the fact that he's doubled down on the Mandarin for the purpose of helping Simon. Just the idea that it's every actor's worst nightmare is being typecasted, and the idea that he's leaned into the typecasting and embracing like his greatest failure as an actor, which is it's the Mandarin. He's in the shadow of the Mandarin. It's kind of his greatest success and failure at the same time. And it's just one. It's just already it's great to see the Mandarins. You say what you will, and that's kind of the meta thing in terms of like the whole like him basically kind of redeeming the infamy of Iron Man 3 with the whole Mandarin plot twist thing is that Kingsley. To me, the thing with the Mandarin Iron Man 3, which we don't have to go into the full thing here, but just in terms of how it relates to this show, you know, the Mandarin, the way he played it, again, we were disappointed because he was playing it so well. And we were so hyped to see, where it goes when we finally get him in a room with Tony Stark. And, it just then frankly, I remember like when I'm seeing Iron Man 3 and when he came out of the bathroom, I was still in. I was thinking, okay, this is like a man who doesn't take himself as seriously behind the camera. And I was still really interested until then we revealed the whole, he's an actor the whole time.
Yeah.
But still, it's just the idea that he is, like him dipping into like it's like a reminder of, oh my god, here's like the best part of Iron Man 3, one of the best parts of Iron Man 3, which is him kind of playing the Mandarin one last time, and he's doing something noble, and he's going the full 9 yards, and throughout the season we built it up. People said doing Mandarin stuff, like they were in prison during the All Hail the King short.
Yeah. No, what's interesting, like in a sort of meta way, is that like we're introduced to Trevor Slattery as being like used as a pawn and tool by like this like big corporate CEO industrious guy, and in his third appearance he's friends with a character who in the comics was like the son of a CEO industrialist and struggling to make things work, kind of like failing a fledgling like Aldrich Killian. But in this, he's retrofitted to be an actor, to be on the same level as Trevor Slattery, and they had this great romance of it all. So I think this is kind of an interesting, meta thing to think about. I also think like the whole, like when he does the whole Mandarin bit, and I think when you see sort of the like footage, it's like there's one thing that maybe have like a bit of a nitpick or minor criticisms, like for all with the Mandarin bits, that's all like aim getting the footage, and like Trevor Slattery's not the one doing anything beyond just doing his whole like script performance of it or whatever. Where does he have the time to like find any sort of Mandarin type costume?
Well, remember it's his apartment. He's got the stuff.
Okay.
Remember, he has like all the theatrical things from his past productions, and I think it might have been in the background early scenes. We might have seen the Mandarin costume. It
I
might have
guess
been there.
it's well because I would figure that would all have been taken by like law enforcement, and then if you
Well,
had to
it was kind of if you look, if you put them side by side, it's not the exact Mandarin costume from Iron Man 3. I'm just
no,
saying that it looks like it looks like kind of a pastiche of like in a pinch, but it looks like he would have had access to theatrical costumes. In
it,
theory, he could have put it together. Now the rings,
honestly,
however, I don't know how he got the rings. That one,
see,
I honestly, I think he probably took it. He took some stuff with him when he left from Shang-Chi, when he left,
I
Kowloon or
would not
whatever.
be surprised if like when Alder Chilling and his folks like reached out or found Trevor Slattery, like they kind of did a research his background or whatever, and he was in a costume drama or whatever, or had some sort of costume that then they made improvements or changes on to then make the full Mandarin look.
I love that when he was arrested again, when he's caught for being the Mandarin, he's in the full costume and everything. I love that he had the
He has the
rings.
Mandarin voice.
He's doing the man. As I'm saying, it was like seeing an old friend again, where he's like who happens to be a terrorist, but he still was an old friend again. He's wearing the F, and he has like all. I love that he had the rings. Like it was a simple thing because you can imagine where is he going to get those? It was like I don't care. He's just back. He's got the. He
No, no,
always
no.
had the sunglasses.
It's funny, like when you see him doing his monologue, it's like, oh, like it doesn't feel as like threatening. Not because you know that it's Trevor Slatter doing a bit, but it's also like, oh, in 1963, the United States and the Soviet Union, like, had engaged in mental warfare, and it's like when you compare it to like what it was in Iron Man 3, it's like these were actual like real
Yeah,
world.
someone wrote it for him.
Yeah, yeah, and they're actual real world like this is like more like okay, this is going off of like conspiracy theory stuff,
Yeah.
like in that ether,
No,
But
yeah, and plus I love if you look at it again, they're using all the hallmarks of the stuff the Mandarin said, which is like the stuff he's asked to say all the time, not just in real life, but also like in the universe, like in the prison and everything, where he's like, like do the thing, and he's of course the big sell, the big catchphrase, been you'll never see me coming, and all
yeah,
that kind of like the whole like my favorite bit, and I was so thrilled they got it in there, the whole that was me, the whole we used it in the audition thing and the flashback and the whole like well we may or may not have used it there, we used it here the whole like like the glee in which he admits the the bombing of the WonderMan set that was me.
yeah. Also,
I did no so sorry
oh
I'm butchering. He says I did that.
oh man, completely forgot to mention. Like at the end of the first episode of the show, it's like Simon's walking past the Chinese theater.
Yeah, the Gremlins Chinese Theater, which I know I was
Yeah,
with you. I was like, oh my god, yes,
that was really cool.
they
I
rebuilt it. Yeah,
yeah, yeah. Um, and and I love how like the last 10 or 15 minutes of the show is like Simon just hanging out with the dude and like basically
and you
shadowing
kind
him.
of knew where it was going, but you
And I
weren't
knew it was
100%
going.
sure.
And like I think someone mentioned this in the outside's like with how the episode ends with the security guard, whoever, he kind like Simon kind of put him in a bad place because whether they could prove he didn't attention or not, it's like the fact that he got this like a deposit of money.
Anonymous donation of like a retirement money.
What?
Remember, he got like Simon donated like anonymously donated like enough money to retire and leave the job.
Yeah, but the thing was is that like DODC, if they do an investigation of how this happened and they track up the guy and they see like he do his bank statements or whatever, if you're an attorney representing DODC and going after this guy, you could think it's like, okay, this guy was bribed by Simon Williams to basically like he was basically like an accessory, and he can face actual jail time, right?
Yeah, well, I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
like
he can. Like if he's not like going off the grid right there, then like he can be easily tracked, and unless there's a way for a lawyer to prove it's like, hey, like you know, because the thing is, it's like if there's phone calls and emails or whatever, say, hey, I want to reach out, do this. It's like, okay, you didn't think that like Simon Williams, who has an association with so and so individual who was an inmate in your facility you work at, didn't ring any alarm bells or whatever. Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
that's the thing. It's like it's a nice moment at that time you're watching, but then you think about it, it's like illegal, like that security guard. Like maybe he'll use that money to get a really good lawyer. Matt Murdock defend the security guard.
Yeah, at least Matt Murdock would do it pro bono. So, but right now Matt's got his own problems, so I'm not sure.
Well, maybe Kristen can help him out.
Or She-Hulk. I mean, She-Hulk could do it. Oh wait,
Yeah.
apparently,
Oh, yeah.
She-Hulk could do it, but right now the MCU's kind of, I don't know, like they're kind of they're giving She-Hulk the cold shoulder right now, but she could do it.
Yeah.
Regardless, I mean, look, it's I mean, the implication is that maybe he'll put two and two together and he'll get him out of there, to get he and his family moved out of there quickly. But I don't know.
Yeah.
It's not. You're right. It doesn't look good for him.
I do think though, like the way the show ends, it's like it doesn't end with a big boss. Like he's taking his friend by his side, and it's kind of like in a way that the way Trevor's holding on to Simon. It's kind of like a fun like bromance version of like when the female superhero like gets the like love interest and like she holds on to the and then just kind of fly out to the distance.
Well, real quick before we just hit on the money moment there. We do got to mention like the premiere. Okay, so the premiere in which we revealed, Joey Pants was recast as the Barnaby character and everything. But we have Simon Williams. He's wearing the outfit in the movie, and he's wearing like kind of like another WonderMan outfit at the premiere. If you really look at it, with the red jacket and the glasses and everything. Which, by the way, I love the whole thing of like he's wearing the original sunglasses the first WonderMan from when he was a kid was wearing. I love that so much.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, like at the premiere, it's a great moment acting because he has everything he ever wanted. It surrounded him, but again, he's not happy.
Yeah, and well, it's not that he's not happy. It just does.
Well, it came at a cost.
Yeah, and I think for all intents and purposes, I think that shows a level of growth on the part of Simon. It's like he got everything what he wanted, but like really what he needed was a friend, someone who could see him the way that his dad saw him and felt, not alone. And I think for all the fame and him being to act, it's like it's very rare to find someone that you connect with, and I think for all intents and purposes, whether that's I think it's not probably heroic in the sense of like, oh, you're saving the world, but like a guy who sacrificed his freedom for you to have a good life. It's like there's a party that wants to do right, and I think Simon, in his own way, wants to do right, and I think it'd be interesting to see where that goes. Like, if there's a second season, like, is it just gonna be them on the run and or like because I still want acting to be a big part of the show because I feel that's just what makes the show what it is. And I'm just wondering, do they just like end up with like a traveling acting troupe or whatever, or something to like where they get to be actors, but how do they kind of do that? If they're on the run, maybe that's part of the traveling actor troupe. They have to pretend to be other people, to pretend to be regular actors, and there's the drama and fun and all that. Because I think it'd be interesting. Then it was like, okay, if he's an actor, like, does he just eventually transition to being an actual superhero, be on the Avengers, and like, how does that work? Because there's some interesting ways where you can make Simon Williams work as a superhero or evolve him to be a superhero. And I think the fact that he is an actor, the fact he's in celebrity culture, whatever, I honestly think if he was on the Avengers or in kind of a leadership role, but be in a prominent role, like, he would probably.
Could he forge the West Coast Avengers? Maybe.
I don't know, but if he did, I feel like he'd be one of, if not the most popular Avenger in the universe.
Really?
And here's my point. I think the thing that I think is interesting about Iron Man being the launching point, the foundation for the MCU, is that Iron Man is basically, what if you take a known celebrity figure and give them superpowers or have them fight crime and save the world? And then the whole like ripple effects of like media culture, of like celebrity, getting this amount of power and the impacts that it goes on and so forth. Like Simon Williams is like, imagine a guy who you see as a celebrity first becoming a superhero, and how does that celebrity status impact and like make him shine. And it'd be kind of interesting that if he interact, like if he's leading an Avengers team, maybe the other heroes aren't good with like PR or media relations, and he even be an actor, he can actually train them to like be like cool, like superhero sounding in interviews or in public settings. And then maybe it's in his mind, it's like, I don't know how to be a superhero, but I'll be an actor, and I'll method act to be a superhero. And then that's where maybe Simon, maybe he interacts with like Kamala Khan or whoever's like the teen heroes that are like big fans of the older generation, and then learns like what it means to be a superhero, and that's how it becomes superhero, by just like method acting or training.
Simon Williams and Kamala Khan is like a really good combination, if you ask me, because those
Yeah,
two, again,
and I
one
think
worships at the altar of the Avengers, the other one is like he's in the world that is like reflective, like heroes in it.
yeah, but I think like the way Simon would go about being a great superhero is by just doing his process of being an actor, like training, like how he shadowed that guy. I think it'd be kind of cool, like if he becomes a really good superhero by just you know shadowing other superheroes and taking notes and like getting embodying that like superhero identity. So
Yeah. So I mean, just the two things I want to hit on here. So just the breakout of when he well, I guess real quick, there was a moment that really touched me in the show. Was the was right in the last episode, the opening of the last episode, the aftermath of seeing the movie with his father, and because I've had that with my father. We've all had, like you see the movie and you're talking. He says, "Well, what are we gonna have to eat? Burgers?" Yes, it's like they're getting burgers after the movie. Like I've grabbed hot dogs with my father after after
and
the
not,
movies, like when I was a kid, and then like
yeah,
he talks to you about the movie, and that really just hit me, man.
it's not just like not just a movie, but like if it's a movie that like your dad had seen when he was younger, and so it's kind of like a bonding, like sharing something that was passed to you. It's kind of like past generational bonding experience, father and son kind of relationship. And I think what I appreciated about Sanford when he's talking to Simon about being an actor, it's like, Simone, I'm not telling you that you're great because I'm like parents who think their kids are great at anything. You're really good and you're really great in 12th night, and you have a talent, and you should pursue that. And I think it's really touching because the stereotype of immigrant parents, that has some basic truths, like you must be doctor, lawyer, engineer, and then maybe finance, whatever. It's like those, like whatever makes the most money gets the most respect. And Sanford being a guy who migrated to the United States, made a life for himself, like he's like, hey, like he wants his son to hone his craft, hone his skills, and it's just, you know, I think with his passing, like, I feel like Simon was much more alone than he would have ever thought. Not to say his mom didn't try his best to support him, but you know, I think his mom understood. His mom loved him, but didn't understand him the way his dad did.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So anyway, so back to the point you were making earlier. So the Midnight Cowboy ending, just it's a high point, man. It's a feel good ending. That we're playing the Harry Nielsen, everyone's talking at me song as like the two of them they get embracing the hug, and just they it breaks him out because the running gag if we keep breaking Slattery out of prison's like the third time technically.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
Yep, and it's just it's wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a great feel good ending, and it kind of leaves it up in the air. And the fact that I was kind of hoping, maybe for a little bit of post credit scene, just given the fact that I mean they really weren't because this show was really on the bubble. It was really on the brink of like it would had it not like, happened when it happened, it wouldn't have gotten the green light because again it was getting pushed and all this kind of stuff. So they were really lucky to make it, and it was only because of that, I kind of wish there was a post credit scene. But again, fundamentally though, it doesn't need it, and just the idea that it just ends on that note, it's just this feel good note, and like we
I
don't know
think
what's going to happen next for him, but you kind of have a good, it's like holy, does he become a hero? Does he not become a hero? It's
a fun post. If it wasn't going to be I think a fun post credit scene that would have been a fun tag would have been like either like an extended sequence from the OG Wonder Man movie, or even like a fun behind the reels blooper of like the modern day Wonder Man
But I
movie.
think the bloopers would have been a funnier idea. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. Anyway, yeah, but anyway, or been even funnier, a post-credit scene for the Wonder Man movie.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like so that way you would have had him
No,
in the
no, no.
costume and like
Oh,
alluding to
and you have the post credit scene just be like a reference or like a fun parody of like the end scene of Batman Begins.
yeah, you could have, yeah.
There's like a Grim Reaper thing, or
Yeah,
kind
oh,
of
there you go, and that's how you get
yeah,
Grim Reaper.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Have that be just the like the villain in the sequel to a Wonder Man movie.
that's how you kind of work him in there without actually doing Grim Reaper. It's like
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
fictionally we would have done Grim Reaper.
yeah,
Yeah. Anyway, so point being is that really it's a feel perfect ending for a very kind of self-contained show. So
yeah. And it's surprising that Wonder Man has some of the best Neo drops in the MCU outside of the Guardians films. I feel.
it's good. I mean, Guardians is a high bar, but it's
No,
good,
no,
good needle.
outside of the Guardians, it's like Wonder Man. I think has the best needle drops.
Okay.
But yeah, no, I think it was an incredibly pleasant surprise. I think Wonder Man is going to be. I think people were to know what it is coming into it, or they were to rewatch it. I think they'll you get. I feel like you get to appreciate the show more and more, and fall in love with Simon and Trevor. And I think I really hope we get to see more of this character and him kind of occupying not being a superhero, but having a nice evolution into that role. Because I think with the way Simon is as a character, I think he can approach being a superhero uniquely and differently enough that he would stand out in a nice way in an Avengers film or an Avengers type project.
Yeah. All right, I think that about does it, folks. I think it's safe to say Wonder Man was a rousing success. And I want to thank the folks for tuning in, listening to us drone on for a few hours. We got Little Blue, we got Super Billy, got Travis Mitchell,
Mm-hmm.
and let's see, am I missing anyone? No, I think we got it there. So sorry folks, just one sec. Anyway, yeah. So well, again, I think it's a good direction for the MCU to go in, with the Marvel spotlight, and hopefully they'll keep it going between that and special presentation. Sky's the limit, and I don't know if we're gonna get more Wonder Man or not, but if we don't, I mean, if we don't, it was a good ride. It was a good standalone, and we'll it's the fact the MCU isn't like planning ahead and planning for it. It's just good that they're seeing what works and focusing on the story first, and that's what we need more of. Keep it grounded, keep it simple, and then when it gets big and grandiose, it feels like we're ready for it. You know.
Yeah, and I think for everyone that is on the fence, I don't know if you. I feel like the show is, even if you spoil the show, I think the actual experience of watching it is such a good experience, and I think that shows how good of the show is. Is that even if you knew all sort of the plot, but like seeing sort of the performance play out, the comedy that's there is on point, the dramas there is on point, and when you have that, it's like that. I think is something that should be good enough to experience and enjoy, and TV and film. Like you come in for stories and good character, and this has so much in spades. And so the super parts aren't there. Like I totally understand if you wanted more, if y'all would want more of that for this type of show. But for this type of show being what it is, like I think it's a good declarative enough show on its own. And I think more and more, I think people are going to appreciate what the show did right. And hopefully, I think other shows get to have the space to do that kind of level of experimentation and, have sort of a healthy balance. That's not to say that there shouldn't be like a main MCU through line and building up of sagas and phases. And I'm not against that. I think there should just also be on the peripheries, on the margin, on the sides, experimentation and ability to like give something that for people who may not be buy into sort of the MCU brand and identity, have something for that would appeal to them if even if it was even if it has very like something that's outside of the MCU or has very little connections. Because I think that's how it helps to keep the MCU alive as a brand is that it has its main core audience, and then it has something for anyone outside that core audience.
Well said. All right, folks. Take care and see you at the movies.
Coming to theaters near you, WonderMan.